the July 29th, 2024 special meeting of the local planning agency of the city of Dunedin. We will now come to order. The local planning agency is an advisory board of citizens appointed by the city commission. This board is comprised of volunteers who represent the thoughts and concerns of the community. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to make a recommendation to the City Commission regarding each item on the agenda. Anyone in the audience who wishes to give testimony to any items on the agenda will need to be sworn in by the Deputy City Clerk just after the introduction of each item. Citizens speaking on an agenda item or during citizen comment will not engage in loud, boisterous, or disruptive speech or conduct. I know that won't happen here, right? Any speaker that has continued inappropriate or irrelevant comments will be requested to relinquish the podium by me. Please be aware that the local planning agency is not a quasi-judicial board and therefore has no final decision-making power. Our procedures, however, are structured in a quasi-judicial manner for the benefit of those who come before it. Tonight's format will be as follows. I will introduce each item on the agenda and inquire on any ex parte contact, after which the Deputy City Clerk will swear in any wishing to speak on the item. Our city representative will then present the information. Thereafter, the members of the local planning agency will ask any questions of the city representative. Finally, anyone from the public may come forward. Those from the public wishing to give testimony will need to approach the dais, state their name and address, and then utilize the speaker's lectern in order for their comments to be recorded. Individual speakers will be limited to 3 minutes speaking time, and we will kindly request that speakers are respectful of the countdown clock. I will give you fair warning when your time is about up, and then if you continue, I will continue to interrupt you. One representative of groups consisting of 5 individuals who are present during the public hearing may speak on behalf of the group for 10 minutes at the chair's discretion. To do so, individuals must have waived their time to the representative by completing the back of a citizen comment card. Upon the conclusion of each public hearing, the local planning agency will consider the evidence before it and will vote on the agenda item. The voice vote is a rendition of the order of the board, and there will be no written decision by the board. I missed something. Please silence your phones. Thank you. All right, public input. At this time, we welcome the opportunity for the public to address any item that is not on the agenda. Is there any such? So we're all here for just 2 things. All right. So we move on to business. Ordinance 2422 of the City of Dunedin amending Section 107-41.1 unlawful noise of the City of Dunedin Land Development Code to provide for interpretive clarity to to amplified sound and to clarify amplified sound may be heard across the property line on New Year's Eve and may never exceed a weighted 65 decibel measured at the property line. Has anyone on this board had any ex parte contacts regarding this item?
Kathy Carlson called me, and I told her that I could not speak anything substantive on this issue because I sat on the LPA, and therefore, and I would also have to give her name.
There you go.
Sorry, it looked green to me. Kathy Carlson called me, and I told her that I could not speak on anything substantive on the issue coming before me because we operated under quasi-judicial rules. And she said, okay. That's it.
Thank you. Deputy Clerk, please swear in any wishing to speak on items 2A, Ordinance 24-22.
Any who would like to speak, if you could kindly stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Staff presentation.
Yes, good evening, Dr. Broom, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. I'm Jennifer Bramley, City Manager, City of Dunedin. It's somewhat unusual for me to be doing a staff presentation at the staff table. It's been about 11 years, so if I'm a little bit rusty, then forgive me, please. But I will be presenting the clarification of the noise ordinance before you this evening. So there are two items, as Dr. Broom had mentioned before you, the outdoor hospitality ordinance and sidewalk cafe, as well as the noise ordinance. They are two very separate ordinances before the board today. The first item, unlawful noise. It's before the local planning agency this evening is an ordinance amending 107-41.1 of the Code of Ordinances pertaining to unlawful noise. The purpose of this amendment is to clarify language in the ordinance that has at times caused confusion, and also to include a provision regarding extended hours on New Year's that was previously approved by resolution in 2013. The unlawful noise ordinance was adopted in 2008 after a great deal of discussion by the community, and I think that some members of the community that participated in that discussion are here this evening as well. In order to engender input from the community in 2007, the City Commission convened the Live, Work, Play, and Sleep Task Force. The task force was assisted by an acoustical consultant. Minutes show that there was lengthy discussion surrounding A-weighted versus C-weighted measurements and permissible decibel levels as well that would be considered unlawful noise. Section 107.41-41.1 C that unlawful noise is the production of sound, including sounds from any amplifier, phonograph, and if somebody in the room doesn't know what that is, we'll have to give you a picture. Hi-fi stereo, tape player, compact disc, or digital sound system, or other type of sound broadcasting or sound amplification device, whether from moving vehicles, vessels, or stationary locations that exceeds an A-weighted decibel threshold of 65 dBs measured at the property line of the complainant. That's a very important point. Or which otherwise creates a nuisance. Such items include, but not limited to, loudspeakers, boomboxes, and car radios. So this section, subsection C, established that unlawful noise in the City of Dunedin is any sound which exceeds 65 decibels at the property line of the complainant. And that would apply 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Section 107-41.1H states that unlawful sound is amplified sound, whether music or any other form of sound, that may be heard outside of the property line from which the amplified sound is generated after 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. any day of the week. This violation includes sound generated inside a structure or outside a structure, sound which may be heard because of the opening of doors as persons enter or leave the structure that momentarily exceeds an A-weighted decibel threshold of 65 decibels, measured at the property line of the property from which the sound is generated, is not a violation of this standard. This section of the unlawful noise ordinance has caused confusion since the adoption of the ordinance, and I would dare say even before the ordinance was adopted. Taken literally, this section of the code requires essentially silence. Ambient sound, mind you, is measured at 45 to 50 decibels. Ambient sound is what you would hear just sitting out in your backyard. Also, given the way that the sound flows in waves, if there is no sound generated from the inside or the outside of the structure, why would the door swing matter? There was a series of clarifications, as I said, from city officials just prior to adoption of the ordinance and then thereafter. The ordinance was adopted, and I cited those clarifications in my memorandum dated February 12th, 2024, to Captain Melvin Jackson, and Captain Jackson is our North District Commander. And the reason why I sent that clarification out was because, again, there was confusion in the community about exactly where you would take your decibel reading. In addition, there was confusion amongst the deputies who are enforcing the ordinance, and that is a very serious issue. Now, before I get into the clarifications, it's important to note that what we are doing today, and what the City Commission will do, should it adopt the proposed ordinance, is resolve this confusion once and for all, and establish clearly how to enforce this ordinance. Enforcement is codified. Is this unusual? Yes, it is. But you can see from all those sitting behind me that the noise ordinance is a very important ordinance in the city of Dunedin. And so clarification of the ordinance is also very important. On May 7th of 2008, that was before the ordinance was adopted, Sergeant C. Laughlin of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office Community Policing Unit made the following recommendations regarding the draft ordinance to City Manager Rob DeSpirito. He said, 1, use the A-rated decibel rating system. 2, set the threshold at 65 decibels for live, outside amplified music. 3, enforcement of this decibel level will be at the point of receivership by the complainant. 4, the business owners will be required to monitor decibel levels. And 5, no outside live amplified music after 11 p.m., 7 days a week. On July 17th of 2008, Harry Gross, Assistant City Manager, described, and he's also the project manager on the noise ordinance effort, I believe, described the parameters of the noise ordinance in a memorandum to the city manager as follows. Introduces an A-weighted decibel threshold standard to determine whether amplified sound is unlawful. Sets the A-weighted decibel level at 65 decibels. Establishes the point of measurement at the property line of the complainant. And finally, establishes that no amplified music be played outdoors after 11 p.m., 7 days of the week. Clarification similar to those already described above occurred in January, and this is after the ordinance was adopted. On January 5th of 2009, Greg Rice, who was the Director of Community Development at that time, wrote to City Attorney John Hubbard, as an example, the business has amplified music within the structure. The time is 11:30 p.m. A person places the decibel reader at the property line of the business and measures the dB. The resultant measurement is 50 decibels. At this point, no violation of the ordinance has occurred. A customer leaves the business by opening a door and exiting the building. At the moment the doors open, the dB level increases to 68 decibels. The door closes and the decibel reading returns to 50 decibels. No violation of the ordinance has occurred. January 15, 2009, he wrote, I did ask the city attorney for clarification. He said that the intent of the ordinance was essentially that the 65 decibel standard would be maintained. It just moves to the property line of the source of the music after 11 o'clock p.m. So the intent is actually very clear when you look at the public record. I did reach out directly to Harry Gross, the city's project manager at the time, assistant city manager, to ensure that I was understanding the minutes of the meeting and understanding the emails and the statements regarding the enforcement of the code and where the decibel level reading would be taken and at what time. Mr. Gross confirmed the city's position in 2007 and 2008. In addition, after I had written the clarification, before I published it, I asked him to read it, and I asked him to ensure that all the information within that memo was correct, and he stated that it was. I did check with Terrence Fallahy, and some of you may know, I think a lot of folks in the audience know Terrence Fallahy. He was our community policing officer. He started in 2014, 2015. He actually taught some of the incoming deputies application of the noise ordinance. Deputy Fallahy trained new deputies in the use of the decibel readers and the implementation of the unlawful noise ordinance. He confirmed the above, that unlawful noise, if anything over 65 decibels measured from the property line of the complainant before 11 o'clock p.m., and anything over 65 decibels measured from the property line of the source of the noise after 11 o'clock p.m. Oh, boy, that's small. So that is attached to the agenda item 2 as well. So we have legislative draft. We call it legislative draft. It's also strike through. So I want to show you exactly what's before the local planning agency today. I already read you sections C and H as they currently exist in the code. So what staff is proposing is that we amend the ordinance to convey amplified sound generated outside of a structure, whether music or any other form of sound that may be heard outside of the property line from which the amplified sound is generated after 11 o'clock p.m. until 7 a.m. any day of the week, and that would be unlawful noise. So any amplified sound outside, and that's speakers, it's TV speakers, it's anything that bolsts the sound of the noise, if you will, would have to be turned off and discontinued outside of the structure after 11 o'clock p.m., except on December 31st from 11 o'clock to 12:30 a.m. on January 1st. We're recommending that we take out this violation includes sound generated inside a structure or outside a structure. And that's the verbiage that really led to the confusion. The intent originally was amplified sound outside be discontinued, and that's not how the ordinance read when it was adopted. And then we're adding subsection I, amplified sound generated inside of a structure exceeding a weighted 65 decibels that may be heard outside of the property line from which the amplified sound is generated after 11 o'clock p.m. until 7 a.m. any day of the week, except December 31st, from 11 o'clock until 12:30 a.m. on January 1st. And so in essence, what we're doing now is stipulating specifically that at 11 o'clock or after, your decibel reading is coming from the property line of the source of the noise, and that it cannot exceed 65 decibels. In regards to the reference to New Year's in 2012, the City Commission adopted Resolution 12-67, which extended the deadline for amplified sound to 12:30 a.m., which actually seems fair given it's New Year's. That said, it was a resolution, and in order to be enforced, it has to be codified in the Code of Ordinances, so we're recommending that we include that in the code as well. So this is a clear, common sense, concise approach which will resolve the confusion regarding this very important ordinance. Before I close, there are a few more points I'd like to make, if I may. Our noise ordinance is a restrictive noise ordinance, and it was designed that way. The noise level of 65 decibels is equivalent to a conversation between two people standing 3 feet away. It should be noted that if the decibel measure is not more than 65 decibels at the property line of the source of the noise after 11 o'clock p.m., then it is less at the property line anyplace else, and probably the complainant, if they're the ones that called it in. Noise amplification generated outside of a structure continues to be prohibited after 11 o'clock p.m., and it always has been since the ordinance was adopted. Staff's recommendation does not change this ordinance and will not change how it is enforced. Those items that were discussed the most in 2007 and 2008 remain very much the same. The rating of the measurement is an A-weighted, and the noise level is 65 decibels. And again, that has not changed. Staff is requesting that the local planning agency forward a favorable recommendation regarding the proposed changes to the City Commission for first reading at their commission meeting on August 1st of 2024. Are there any questions?
Agency members?
Jennifer, I've got a question. Given the past confusion around enforcement, what steps are being taken so that residents of Dunedin can feel confident that the enforcement is taking place consistently, and not just with regards to amplified music, but other noise in general, such as raucous behavior and whatnot.
So, and this is a direct result of the Business Resident City Task Force that was convened early on. After that task force was convened, there was a request to add an additional code enforcement officer, and that was prohibited, given our budget, to add an additional staff member to that particular division. I did, however, work with the sheriff's office to put on a dedicated CPO Wednesday through Saturday in the downtown, and to essentially monitor noise, sound, and raucous behavior within the downtown. Also, I think it needs to be very clear that deputies can proactively enforce this ordinance. After an investigation, if they find that the decibel level exceeds 65, then they can issue a citation. So they are on I've been very clear with Captain Jackson during the course of the weekend. They are to be looking for noise violations, if you will, monitoring downtown and other areas of the city, and investigating issues with noise and sound throughout the city.
Do all officers carry the sound monitor?
Yes.
Along those same lines with the actual equipment that's going to be used, is that, I guess, shared, whether it's the make and model, those kind of things, and also the calibration of such? You can download decibel apps on your phone.
Right.
So to keep everybody on the same page, what is being done, and same thing along with calibrations and how often?
So every shift, actually, they calibrate the decimeters, is that what you call them? The mechanism. They actually calibrate at the start of the shift, and it's a 2-minute calibration. They use exactly the same decibel reader throughout the organization. So they're getting the same equipment, and they're calibrating the equipment every single shift.
Can you just reiterate the clarifications? I think New Year's Eve.
Yes.
Correct? And then it's from where the decibel is rendered from the complainant before 11 and at the source after 11. Is that correct?
Correct.
And also the amplified noise. Is that correct?
Amplified noise.
Can you please reiterate? Amplified noise means generated music, is that correct?
So let me read you the definition. So sound amplification refers to the process of increasing the amplitude or loudness of an audio signal. This can be done through the use of electronics such as amplifiers, speakers, or sound systems. It can also be done without electricity through acoustical means such as using a hollow body or tuned pipe to amplify sounds. I guess that's where the phonograph comes in, right? The goal of sound amplification is to make the sound louder and more easily heard by the intended audience.
And your clarification was amplified sound is, under this one, is not allowed after 11.
Outside the structure after 11 o'clock p.m.
Outside
Correct.
the structure.
Correct.
Thank you.
Jennifer, you mentioned the CPOs are going to be working Wednesday through Saturday evening.
Yes.
I know particularly weekends and during season, people are out pretty late. How late will those officers be working?
So all the officers will be working 24/7 throughout the city. Their details and their CPOs. The CPO right now is working from 1 to 11.
Okay.
So the officers then, once the CPO leaves, the officers, they're notified that the CPO has left and that they'll pull in the patrol closer to downtown. I did talk to Captain Jackson about that in particular. I do think during the higher season that we need the CPO here later, and we're working on that.
So sound that is not amplified, that is over 65 decibels, that's okay?
So no, at the property line, the sound needs to be at 65 decibels.
Period.
Yes,
Amplified or unamplified?
yes.
Okay.
But I think you said amplified. music is not allowed outside after 11 o'clock.
Correct.
Did that help or hinder?
Well, just to be clear, that any sound that exceeds 65 decibels is not okay.
Well, it can be measured at the boundary.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. That it? Michelle, shall we begin the introduction to public comments?
Yes, sir. We did receive several public comments. Those were received via e-comment and/or email. Those have been distributed and will also be made part of the record. So then,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
If you come up, please be aware of the time limits. Many people want to speak. Therefore, give your neighbors their time as well, please. Who would like to
So
speak?
I'm going to go ahead and start to read the public
Very
comments.
good.
When I read your name, if you could kindly come, state your name and address, and please confirm that you have been sworn in. So we'll start on the comments we have for this item, 2A. Michael Lynn Bryant, please.
Thank you. I hope everybody gets an applause like that. Good evening, everybody. I've heard a lot of opinions
Pardon?
recently.
Sir?
Oh, I have been sworn in.
You've been sworn in your name and address.
Sorry, my name is Michael Lynn Bryant. I'm at 518 Beltry Street.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening. I've heard a lot of opinions recently about the sound ordinance. Many are either based on personal preference or a lack of facts and data. Nobody is asking for the ability to have live or amplified music and sound past 11 p.m. outdoors. We are simply asking for clarity that allows us to maintain the quality of life and businesses that have all come to love and expect in Dunedin over the last 3+ decades. When the ordinance was first published, my mom and father were both on the task force and asked and received a written clarification that was referred to by the city manager. I have copies of that here. The Assistant City Manager Harry Gross said that the intent of the ordinance was that the 65 decibel standard would be maintained. It just moves to the property line of the source of music at 11 p.m., as she said. For reference, 65 dBs is the equivalent to a normal conversation between two people at 3 feet away. The sound ordinance was correctly enforced for 10 years with no issues. In 2018 and again in 2023, a Dunedin citizen advised Sheriff's Department incorrectly, which led to a wrongful enforcement and harassment of our particular business, Dunedin Brewery on 937 Douglas Avenue, which also extended to harassment of our employees. The issue was brought to the attention of the city manager, who after much thorough investigation came to the conclusion that a second clarification may help those reading the ordinance so that this is interpreted and followed correctly in the future. We have hosted over 3,000 concerts since 2001, most having ended well past midnight with no issue except for the mistaken enforcement that I've referred to. We hope to continue our legacy as an independent, family-owned, second-generation Dunedin business that helped put this city on the map. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on these matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
We now have John Dieter. If you could please state your name and
Yes.
address. And
My name is
confirm.
John Didier, 1969 Dunlow Circle.
Have you been sworn in?
Yes, I have been
Thank
sworn in. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Jennifer Bramley for her comprehensive research regarding the sound ordinance with all its details that are extremely necessary. I'm a local musician here in Dunedin, and decibels and their readings mean a lot to me. I think that from my personal experience, it's very important that this scientific standard is set, because otherwise we're just going by complete ambiguity. And despite this verbiage being in the sound ordinance, I do believe that it needs to be properly communicated to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, because I, at one point, as an employee of Dunedin Brewery, have been told that it read otherwise, despite the fact that it stated the current verbiage that it is. So I do think that it's very important that Pinellas County Sheriff's Office is aware of how this reads entirely, and thus that clarification is very necessary. Duly, to echo what you had asked, and I'm a little confused by this, if 65 decibels is a conversation between two people happening 3 feet away, I was under the impression that the sound ordinance was specifically for amplified sound. If it is beyond that, and it could just be casual conversation, does that mean that Pinellas County Sheriff's Office is taking decibel readings at the property line of a business after 11 p.m. for the patrons who are hanging out outside if, for whatever reason, that exceeds 65 decibels? I mean, I'm not going to ask you to answer my question during my time, but that's something definitely to consider. Duly, in my experience using decibel readers, I've stood at the property line with an A-weighted decibel reader and have noted that cars driving by, a palm tree blowing in the breeze, absolutely makes that sound meter spike. And if that wind blowing through the palm tree is consistent, I do believe that the sheriffs who are enforcing this need to be aware of that and know specifically the origin from where that sound that they are attempting to read is coming from. Otherwise, they are wrongly citing businesses and individuals. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank
Josh-
you, Mr. Didier.
Pardon me, sorry, Chair. Josh Furtman?
Josh,
If you could please state your name and address for the record and kindly confirm that you've been sworn in.
Yep, my name's Josh Feltman. I actually live in Tarpon Springs, but 2058 Bayshore Boulevard is where I operate my business.
And
So-
have you been sworn in?
Yes, I heard some of it outside, yes. The only point that I have to make is the city of Dunedin really has something nice going on here. I would really hate to see stuff like this break it up. You have multiple other cities around you trying to do what you guys enjoy here, or what most people will say enjoy here. Is the reason I brought my business here. I would hope you understand that and realize that these ordinances that you're dealing with today really have a way to shape what this city does. So, thank you.
excuse me, what is your business again?
Truck and Ladder Brewing Company.
Thank you.
Kevin Connell?
I'll give you one more chance. Kevin Connell, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'll put Kevin Connell aside. Joanne Pasqua? Oh, I can dismiss? Ooh, this one's tricky. Is this Gwen Portland?
Try it
I'm
again.
going to try the address, 1860 Braymore. Okay, okay. Robert Ray. If you could kindly state your name, address, and please confirm you've been sworn in.
Robert Ray, 214 Scotland Street, Dunedin.
And you've been sworn in?
And I have been sworn in.
Thank you so much.
I live at 214 Scotland Street. I've lived there for 24 years. And it's built in 1926. The first, I think the first dentist in Dunedin lived there. It's one house off of Edgewater. And on the west side, it's 7 feet from that property. And in the mid-2000s, an apartment building was torn down, and they put in a parking lot behind my house, which is about 12 feet from my house. And on the nursing home side, which used to be a nursing home, and that's now been, I understand it's been purchased and is currently not occupied, which I'm thinking something's going to happen there. But my house is about 12 feet from that. So I'm, concerned about what can happen in the future. And of course, I'm imagining that this ordinance would apply to future projects as well. So I would not be in favor of anything other than maintaining a quieter neighborhood. I've heard, people drive by and they park in the parking lot behind my house. They play no loud music, off their radios, out of their cars, trucks, late at night once in a while. And of course, being in that neighborhood, people are walking by at all hours. So there's, I just don't want that type of situation to get worse. And there are other properties on my same side of the street that I think have some of the same issues. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Jason Seibert? Sorry for my mispronunciation.
I have not been sworn in.
Oh, wonderful. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Jason Seibert. I live at 1756 Ranchwood Drive South in beautiful Dunedin, Florida. I've been a business owner down here for about 14 years, and I've been coming to downtown to enjoy this vibrant downtown for over 20 years. And I've been blessed to be a homeowner now for 3 years. It was hard to do because I'm an entrepreneur. When I started, a lot of people knew me at Rosie's as a bartender, and I bought Flanagan's as a bartender at Rosie's. I've been a business owner down here for 14 years because we had a yoga studio as well, so now I've owned 3 businesses in downtown. I also lived a few houses behind Michael Bryant's business for 7 years, and some of that not as a business owner, but as a resident. And sometimes I could hear things coming out of that business, and I complained 0 times because I moved into a culture and a beautiful place that made vibrant noise, and I knew that I moved to that area. I understand that people on the outside, including the gentleman that just spoke, has been here for a long time, and it hasn't been the case for as long as that. But a lot of things grow, and we've been growing. We've been nurturing the downtown culture for a long time, and now we're asking everybody to be quiet, even though we've grown and nurtured this downtown culture. And it's my opinion that though we have an ordinance that works, that we should not stifle growth, and we should not stifle people from able to make noise, not amplified noise. I understand amplified noise, but I don't think that we can enforce people congregating and speaking. I don't know how, as a business owner owning 2 bars downtown, I can tell my patrons, hey, you got to be quiet, because I don't have the authority to do that. So that's my opinion, and I also want to say quickly that I don't think that this should divide us so much. I love everybody on both sides of this issue, and I hope that we can continue to love our neighbors on both sides. Thank you.
John Shine? Can you state your name and address and confirm you were sworn in, please?
My name is John Shine. My address is 217 Aberdeen Street. And I'm a candidate for mayor from a transparency point of view, and I'm also the president of the Dunedin Downtown Neighborhood Association.
And were you sworn in?
Yes, ma'am, I was
Thank you so
sworn in.
much.
Thank you. I guess I have 2 concerns. The first is not the method of enforcement, but the policies and processes of enforcement. Are we asking the police to hide in the bushes and measure sound at 11 o'clock? Are we going to distribute decibel meters throughout the city and then respond to that noise, whatever that noise is? Where is that enforcement? What is it that catalyzes an enforcement? Is it any noise? Do you do a stakeout? Are the police outside a specific place, and do you do stakeout? And what about those who use enforcement as a weapon against a business? What if somebody has a grudge against a business? How does that business protect itself? We just said 65 decibels is a conversation between two people 3 feet away. It doesn't take very much to violate that. How are we going to enforce that? Not the decibel meter, but the method by which. Does someone get a warning? How long do we measure it? Do we sit out there for half an hour until the decibel meter pops up because somebody walks out the door and coughs? How is this really done? Because I didn't hear that from City Manager Bramley. I didn't hear what catalyzes an investigation. What catalyzes a police officer coming out, right? Do they have to have probable cause, or can they just sit there and wait? The second issue I have is the punishment should meet the crime. What is the process by which justice is served? Does it go to a judge? Does a judge decide? Does it go to some kind of quasi-judicial situation where peers are actually deciding? Who is it that decides, and how often do they decide? Is someone's business at stake and their livelihood at stake because they violated the noise ordinance? How many times does that take? How many times in a year? How many times in a decade? I don't understand how we can enforce laws if we don't understand those basic premise. And that ordinance doesn't communicate that. At least it doesn't to me. Perhaps there's other laws behind it that communicates that. But I don't want this to be, we have a beautiful downtown, and am I up? I got 3 minutes. I'm good. I said what I needed to say. Thank you.
Christine Vargas? Thank you. Bill Weldon?
Bill Weldon, 656 Broadway. I have been sworn in, resident at that same address for 26 years now. I'm also the property manager there. What hasn't been said today is that all sound is not created equal. So after 11 p.m. is my main concern with bass sounds. And Jennifer mentioned the A-weighted scale. The problem is an A-weighted scale is a general noise scale. It does not capture the bass sounds. A C-weighted scale would capture those bass sounds. And the problem with after 11 is, yes, there's no live music outside, but if you go to some of these places, they're playing loud bass music after 11 p.m. It emanates outside of the structure. That's why the noise ordinance was written that way in 2008, to capture sound emanating from inside or outside a structure or building, right? To protect the residents of the ever-expanding entertainment district, right? We're a neighborhood that's existed. The home across the street next to one of the bars has been there since 1905, right? We deserve protection. We didn't just get here, right? The airport moved next to us. We didn't move next to the airport. So I just wanted to say, when people talk about the science, all noise is not created equal. If you wanted, as a resolution, to put a C-weighted scale for noise after 11 p.m., that could be a compromise that might work. Thank you.
Jason Williams?
Jason Williams, 1986 Braymore Drive.
Have you
First,
been sworn in?
yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. First, I'd like to thank you guys, because it's a big subject. You guys being on this council, it's tough, and you're the ones feeling the brunt of it, and I can appreciate that, especially that you're volunteers, which is even bigger. So I appreciate you guys doing that from a volunteer's perspective. You guys know I'm big on volunteering. This issue is, for me, it's a big one because the city, and how the city is run and how the city is, the spirit behind it is what got me through COVID. So I would come down here all the time, and I would go to all the breweries and go to the businesses, and it's what got me through this. So any change in the ordinance that would affect the spirit of this town should not even come close to being put into action. And that's basically all I have to say.
Joseph Kokalakis?
Good evening, everybody. Joe Kokalakis, 134 Buena Vista Drive, and yes, I've been sworn in. I've been a resident of Dunedin since 1986, so it is about 38 years. And, I guess against what's commonly been referred to, I'm not a developer. I've been a resident. I raised my family here. I'm a general contractor who's invested in Dunedin for the sole purpose of creating an environment, that would elicit the kind of response we have today, of people with different opinions possibly, but that come together, share them, express them respectfully, and then move on. I'm going to try not to bleed into the outdoor dining ordinance and noise ordinance, but they are intimately related, obviously. The noise ordinance itself, and I think I heard the city manager say that it could be interpreted as originally written, that dead quiet is expected after 11 p.m. or midnight on Saturdays, Fridays and Saturdays. Obviously, that's not realistic. I think it's embarrassing that we're standing here, we have to draft an ordinance that states that on New Year's Eve, restaurants and bars get a pass to be open, or at least create noise after midnight. It's absurd, because everyone knows that that should be a common understanding out of respect for the businesses. I have 69 residents that rent from me in downtown Dunedin, 69 families that I feel I'm responsible for. I have 40 businesses that rent from me in downtown Dunedin. 11 of them have outdoor dining. So I think I'm in sort of a unique position to offer a perspective where both sides need to figure this out. I am grateful to the city manager for putting together her analysis. I may not agree entirely with it, but I do agree that we need something, because it doesn't make sense to expect quiet after midnight. You want people to be outside. All my 69 residents, if you survey them, move downtown just for the action that we're talking about here today. They like the music, they like the outdoor restaurants, they want to sit outside and congregate with their friends. So from my end of it, I think listening today, the issues are enforcement, because I do believe that if the deputy is in charge of the enforcement after 11, then from what I understand, that is only in response to a complaint. That complaint is public record, and there have been cases where they're vilified on social media for making a complaint. Again, sometimes, like I said, those complaints are without merit, because the deputies or the enforcement aren't fully aware of how to monitor the noise, or defining whether it is amplified sound or just raucous behavior. So I think the city, by clarifying the ordinance, it would be easier to enforce, and by having city personnel on staff, rather than a deputy sheriff, it makes it much more like, someone's around just giving notice. And that's kind of it. I echo everybody's comments that I think we should all just work through this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
David Robinson?
Hello, folks. My name is David Robinson. I live at 351 Orangewood Drive here in Dunedin. I was sworn in as a safety officer in the 5th grade.
Let's swear you in.
We're good?
Please raise your right hand.
Okay.
Do you swear the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hi, City Manager. Can you tell me what the noise ordinance standard for the majority of Pinellas County is?
You're giving public comment to the board right now?
I believe, I'm just going to guess, but I believe it's at approximately 73, okay? And you guys are talking about 65. So I wish that we would amend this further and bring it up to the county standard. I have lived here for 20 years, and I spend all my money downtown. I usually spend it between the hours of 8 and 3 a.m. I get out of work at 8, so sometimes I like to relax and go out a little bit later. So I miss all the happy hours with my friends. I miss dinners with my friends. But I get to see all my friends that are getting off of work late, the people that serve us, the people that bartend for us, the people that manage for us, the people that cook in the kitchens here locally, and they are people just like everybody that wants to go to bed at 11. Thank you. We like to sit outside and have a drink and talk. And if we're going to get harassed or the business is going to get harassed, that is simply not fair. So I ask you guys to get this corrected. Let's make it so that there's clarification on the issue. Again, City Manager, I'd like you to look into the standard for the county because I think it should actually be there. And I'll give you one example. One of my friends leaves. It's 12:30. I'm at the House of Beer. And I yell, "I love you, Larry." I just broke the ordinance. Do you see what I'm saying? Or I see Tina coming. And I'm, "Hey, Tina, we're over here. Come join us." These things are going to happen, and they shouldn't cause an issue, and they shouldn't cause a fine, and they shouldn't cause anybody to get harassed locally. This place is for all of us, and I ask that you do keep Dunedin delightful, but maybe at 73, 75 decibels, okay? All right, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Jade Seibert.
Hi, I am Jade Seibert. I live at 435 Highland Court, and I have not been sworn in.
Do you swear the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I've lived in Dunedin almost my entire life. I currently live in the center of our downtown core, where I've been for the past 10 plus years. I can see the Dunedin Brewery from my front porch. And my daughter was less than a year old when we moved into that location. So you guys know, like, that common saying, never wake a sleeping baby. Well, even with her being an infant, we never had any issues regarding noise or disturbances in the location that we live. And I just believe that Dunedin has grown into something very special. I believe that it's what we've promoted, it's what we've advertised, it's how we've brought these tourists here, and we shouldn't sacrifice all of the work that we've done to get to where we are now over some silly noise issues when we're already below the county ordinance at the 65 decibels. And people should be allowed outside after 11 p.m. I'm concerned about the people who are employed by the local establishments here, especially in the hospitality industry, because of how restricting the outdoor ordinance is with having nobody on patios after 11 p.m. It's going to reduce the potential volume of the establishments and thereby, as far as customer volume, and thereby going to reduce the income that these employees are able to make. Less people, less opportunity to make money, less shifts available for these hospitality workers because they don't need as many people on staff. And yeah, we love Dunedin. We want to keep it going, keep it the nice, vibrant, fun atmosphere that it has been for so long. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Shannon Smith.
Shannon Smith, 1268 Bayshore Boulevard, Dunedin, and I have been sworn.
Thank you.
Before I get into a couple of the other elements, I just want to get three key points across so my time doesn't run out. I just think that eliminating the quieter hours, which were actually intended at the time this ordinance was passed, sort of risks too much. We're talking about making an ordinance that covers the entirety of our city, not just the downtown core. And so eliminating quieter hours could risk destroying the balance that we've enjoyed over this period of time. Secondly, I do believe sometimes things should be quieter. Not all the time, but sometimes it should be quieter. And just to be clear, there's been a lot of discussion about what the overall noise ordinance is. At 65 decibels, we will be higher than the county average for the evening hours. The county ordinance is 55. It's 55 after 11.
Please allow the gentleman to give his comments.
Yeah. You can check for yourself. It's 55 decibels after 11 in the county ordinances. So in terms of the timing, quieter hours are good for human health and safety. And in the end, I don't want to see us sort of destroy the balance we've had as a community. At the same time, I would say that Dunedin voters do deserve some protection involved in enacting these ordinances. Not everybody lives a long way away. In certain instances, this property line that we keep talking about is one and the same. There is no change in the point of measurement between 11 o'clock or 10:59 and 11 o'clock because it's a shared property boundary. So Dunedin residents do need to be protected in some respects along the way. In terms of original intent, I would just point out that there are many that have thought about original intent, and it starts back with one of the people that Manager Bramley mentioned, Terrence Fallahy. And so I'm going to share some materials for you for your record where Terrence Fallahy had in writing where he was and where the Sheriff's General Counsel's office was back in 2018, as well as his frustration at the city's failure to enforce the ordinance as he had researched it to be in 2018. The other element that I would share for your record today is that this continued all the way up through and including the recent work that was done by the current North District captain, where he stated as recently as this September, it is a recommendation of our General Counsel's office that we interpret regarding the city's noise ordinance, that the city's noise ordinance be expressed literally and any amplified noise after 11 is improper. And so we're here today to talk about what we want it to be in the future, but the question is, what are we doing? We are expanding the noise ordinance by this enactment to go to 65 decibels. Again, I would ask for one clarification. City manager at one point said all noise, but what's on the board in front of us says amplified noise only is what is measured after 11 o'clock. And so I think if I was in your shoes, I'd want to know that at the same time. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Deb Williams.
Hi, my name is Deb Williams. I live at 1656 San Mateo Drive, and yes, I have been sworn in. I just want to say that I've lived in this beautiful city for 3 years, and I've lived in Pinellas County for 10 years. I came from Austin, Texas, where it was 75 decibels, from the hospitality industry where they built condos next to bars and restaurants that were existing and came in and got mad about people sitting on porches, having conversations, nothing to do with amplified music. And I feel that there is a lot still where it is not made clear about conversation versus amplified music. I can understand the amplified music, although I do think it should be midnight on the weekends. But people having a conversation 4 people sitting around a table, drinking, having drinks, not screaming, not yelling, not listening to music. I sat there with many an officer and their decibel meters. I had another officer come in with another decibel meter, and they would all say different things. People would say different things, and it's a way to me of how are you literally going to enforce this? I moved to Dunedin because this is a delightful place. I came here for the culture. I came here to be able to go sit out on a patio and have cocktails with friends or food, or bring my guests who come to visit me in the beautiful state of Florida and our beautiful community of Dunedin, and our snowbirds that come down here and our tourists that come here. They want to go out and have a nice evening, and I think they should all be able to do that. And I think that we need to reconsider the 65 decibels, as well as clarify whether my voice right now, I'm from Philadelphia originally, I have a loud speaking voice. I'm going to be over 65 decibels. So we need to put that into consideration as we take forth on this. Thank you.
Chair, that is all of the comment cards I have received for item 2A.
Thank you very much.
We could now open it up to anyone who did not present a public comment card.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Hearing none. Agency members, do you have further questions?
Jennifer, I have 2 questions for you. One, in relating to John Shine's question about how it's enforced and how frequently things would happen. I believe that's in Code 34, nuisance activity, if that's correct, in terms of the frequency before something.
It is. Just in terms of the enforcement of the noise ordinance and really any ordinance of the city of Dunedin, just a couple clarifications. What catalyzes that enforcement? If I may, I wrote down some of his questions. So, as you know, we don't permit, or the state does not permit anonymous complaints. So what catalyzes that enforcement, what initiates the enforcement is either one, somebody calls in and says there's a noise violation, or I believe there's a noise violation, or 2, the deputy hears it and investigates, finds that there is a violation and issues, first of all, a warning, and then a citation to the manager of the business, not the owner, but the manager on duty of the business. So it's really a twofold approach to enforcement of the ordinance. That's how it's been enforced in the past. I think that the anonymous complaint, I think it was 2021.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, that occurred. And so we do have, as I said, I've had multiple conversations with the sheriff's office in terms of enforcement, how and where. As I said, we have hired the CPO, additional CPO. We had to pay the shift differential for the CPO to be around downtown. Like, as I said previously, during the busy times, we'll probably want to extend those hours. And he will be proactively working on the noise ordinance itself and raucous behavior. And so the enforcement is really, it is in place now. Chapter 34 then is the chronic nuisance, and that states that I think it's 3 violations within 1 month, and you invoke the chronic nuisance process as well. So there is a path to enforcement of the noise ordinance. The deputy himself, then, as a part of the process, would engage the manager of the business, or, you know, as Mr. Smith has said, this is citywide, and Mr. Kokolakis, or the home, knock on the door. We've had a complaint. Can you keep it down? In my conversations with Captain Jackson, it is discretionary. He allows his deputy's discretion. I'll turn it down. We're done, and we leave. If he does issue a notice of a citation, it's a $262 citation, and it will go to, if it's challenged, it will go to circuit court. So the method to challenge that is through circuit court. There's a provision in the noise ordinance that actually allows the city to initiate an additional fine, if you will, $500, if there is a violation of the noise ordinance itself. And so there are various paths to enforcement of the ordinance. I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you want me to address some of the questions. I know you're in the question and comment. Okay.
I've got a second question in response to Shannon Smith's comment. it does talk about amplified sound under H, generate outside the structure, but it also talks about whether music or any other form of sound.
Yes.
So if our self-admitted Philadelphia voice here is really loud and the Eagles just win the Super Bowl again, her and George will be out late at night celebrating. If they are out celebrating loudly above 65, that could be a citation.
So if I may, just to because we need to really discuss that any other form of sound. It is the any other form of sound that I'm applying here, staff is applying in terms of the 65 decibels. Recently, we've had a couple of complaints in regards to raucous behavior. Before that, I would have to look at the records, but I don't recall complaints regarding raucous behavior. It really is regarding amplified sound. And to that end, when this gentleman was saying hi to his friend Larry, or, greeting your friends in downtown, I think it's really important to note that the deputies take their sound rating over a 2-minute period. They're not just shooting the sound, waiting for the 65 decibels, and then saying you have a violation. Because a truck can go by, and it will go above 65 decibels. You can greet your friend, and that will go above 65 decibels. But they're reading the kind of the constant sound, the constant noise of the level of sound, and that is what the citation would be issued against, and not this gentleman saying hello to his friend Larry. So, I think that we need to make that very clear as far as, there's been a lot of comments that I just want to, greet my friends, and I want to laugh, and I want to do those types of things. The noise ordinance, that would not be a violation of the noise ordinance. I like people laugh. I like it when they laugh, yeah.
Don't you think that should be codified?
Are there other clarifications you'd like to offer?
Yes, absolutely. So we did talk about the 65 decibels and whether that's amplified or not. So, and the 65 decibels, whether it's amplified or not, again, that's how it's been enforced. And I just want to go down my list right here, if I may. Policies for enforcement, I addressed that. Again, the first speaker who got up said, well, what if there's a spike in the reading, and that since they kind of smooth it over a 2-minute period or longer, then that would not be a violation of the noise ordinance. We talked about what catalyzes an investigation. Punishment should meet the crime, and the citation of $262, and you can be issued more than one citation. And then Chapter 34, which is the chronic nuisance, is the penalty fitting the crime, if you will. If you are a chronic nuisance, then you have to submit an action plan. You have to mitigate and have to address that issue. Enforcement after 11 o'clock. Hold on 1 second. Oh. The noise standard for Pinellas County, I don't know what the noise standard for Pinellas County is. I can't answer that. And I think that's the follow-up. I didn't see anything else.
Thank you.
Hear anything else?
Jennifer, at any time did you all, this has been going on a lot of years.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, because I've heard this a lot of years, did you all sort of look at A-weighted versus C-rated scale?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was here. So the A-weighted versus C-rated scale was heavily discussed during the course of 2007 and 2008. And that task force and the city commission seated at the time, on the recommendation of the LPA, they went with the A-weighted scale. So an A-weighted scale is a form of frequency weighting and the most commonly used of a family of curves, i.e. noise waves, as defined in the International Standard Code. So it's the most common measurement, the A weighting of sound waves. A weighting is applied to instrument-measured sound levels in an effort to account for the relative loudness perceived by the human ear. So it's really what the human ear hears. C weighting is the next most common type of frequency weighting, and it's generally a flat rating. So it's less severe on low frequencies. So Mr. Weldon is correct. It's less severe on low frequencies. And so that said, that is a fact that Mr. Weldon has brought up repeatedly through the BRC. But it was heavily debated at the time that the ordinance was adopted. And also, this is a clarification of the ordinance and not an amendment or changing the ordinance, the basic, if you will, the most solvent parts of the ordinance. Solvent's not the right word, but the most important parts of the ordinance that were adopted in 2008.
So you did really look into the A and C.
I looked into it, Mrs. Kynes, whatever. I looked into it. I looked into it when it was adopted in 2008, but not as an application in this round of amendment.
What? You can't hear me? Great. I just want to totally clarify this because you and I have been sort of dancing around this. So no amplified. Amplified to me is, a DJ outside,
Yes.
a band, is not allowed after 11.
That's
With your
correct.
clarification.
Outside.
Outside.
Right.
But after 11, you could still take, and here, this is what I need to know. After 11, you could still take a decibel reading if you felt that it was raucous behavior, I guess. Is that true or false?
Yes.
So it still controls a noise level, but amplified music absolutely is inside after 11 o'clock.
Correct.
And that's it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I've got one more. I just want to clarify on H. Take out the amplified piece. Any other form of sound that may be heard outside the property line generated after 11 until 7, but it doesn't have a decibel level there. So if I would interpret that as that even talking could potentially be a problem under section H, because it doesn't specify a decibel level. Am I reading that correctly, or?
So the decibel reading is 65.
Okay, but
Right.
it's not specified in there. It's specified in I, but not in H, which is the outside of the structure, where I is the inside of the structure.
Well, H is establishing that generated, amplified sound generated outside the structure is unlawful noise.
Yep.
Any amplified sound, period. It doesn't.
I got that.
Okay.
It's more the raucous behavior is what I'm concerned about,
Right.
because any other form of sound.
Yes, it's not defining that 65
It's
decibels
not
on that.
defining that as 65
That's
decibels.
right.
So potentially, just talking could be in violation of H. Am I reading that?
If I might,
I get what you're saying, but.
I just want to make sure we word this correctly the first time.
if I might clarify, City Manager, can you remind them of subsection C?
Yes.
Thank you.
So section C sets the decibel reading at 65 decibels before 11 o'clock at the source of the property, at the property line of the complainant.
Okay.
And subsection C is not being changed by this ordinance, correct?
No.
Kevin, you okay?
No, because I'm reading C. It says, "The production of sound, including sounds from amplifier, phonograph, hi-fi, stereo, tape player, compact disc, digital sound, or any other type of sound broadcasting or sound amplification device, whether from moving vehicles, vessels, or stationary locations." I don't see where it talks about, in effect, behavior. People being loud. We know alcohol late at night, people are having a great time. It could get loud, but nowhere in there does it say that that's subject to the 65 decibel at the property line.
Right, it does not.
So that
No.
could be a problem to residents who live nearby to businesses.
I think that the issue with the residents who live nearby in the businesses is that raucous type of sound, it really spikes. It's not that constant, the laughing and then the quiet and laughing and quiet. I think that that's the issue. When the deputies have been on site, when there have been, a number of people, they traditionally take the reading and find that a violation does not occur because it's not over a continuous period of time.
But what if you had, it's season, people are down on vacation, they're chinging glasses, they're playing cornhole after 11 o'clock outside. That's going to go beyond 2 minutes potentially, and that's the noise that can disrupt sleep. How do we address that in these codes? I don't know if I see it.
Right.
I need some help seeing that.
Yeah, it doesn't specifically address that in the code, the raucous behavior.
Okay.
You consider raucous clinking a glass?
Well, if you're doing a lot of it, people are partying, they're having a great time.
Let's not have
Yeah, we're not,
discussion, please.
Yeah, but I just don't see in here where people having a great time for more than 2 minutes, and it could be a problem, there's no control for that. It's just the amplified sound that seems to be what we're controlling under
Right.
H and I.
Okay. Kevin, your point is made?
Okay.
Or you could just say, anybody having a great time over 2 minutes is going to be in trouble. You know, I don't know. I mean, raucous behavior may be in the eye of the beholder. I mean, you know, if you want to define it, maybe that's where you're going. Can you define? But you're saying more normal, let's get together, you know, is not going to impinge because of the length that they take that decibel reading. Correct, Jennifer? That's what you're saying?
Correct, yes.
Do you feel that it is lacking in some sort of a definition?
No, there is a section of the code that pertains to raucous behavior. I would need some time to look that up. Because there is a section of the code that applies to inappropriate and raucous behavior, if you will, but I don't know offhand which section it is right now.
So that this really does not address that issue.
I think the sound level at 65 decibels would address the raucous behavior issue, yes.
Okay. Anything else, members? Dennis? Okay. The chair is willing to entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we move forward with Noise Code 2422, subject to clarifying for the commissioners how raucous behavior would be addressed through this code.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All,
Oh, we did discussion, right?
yes.
Yes.
So we are voting now.
Oh, no, you get discussion.
Yeah, there's board discussion on a proposed
Okay.
motion before voting.
So, gosh, now you threw it right out of my brain because I was trying to say that, oh, I know what I was going to say, is that what Jennifer is saying, which I believe, is that when you look at this, it has all these other regulations, statutes that come above it. I mean, or that intersect with it. I mean,
Yes.
it's got other regulations than just what you're reading, and one of them is raucous and behavior.
Correct, and I think, Mr. Benjamin's comment is a well-placed comment, and that motion gives us the opportunity to provide the city commission with those code sections for raucous behavior. I think we'll be able to settle that.
Okay, so just so everybody understands that that's what's happening, you have said there are other things that read into this ordinance, that the other regulations go into this ordinance that may not be specifically enumerated.
Right, they're not mutually exclusive. This pertains to noise, and there are other sections of the code that pertain to behavior.
Apply, and
Yes.
are pertinent.
Yeah.
Is there other discussion? Hearing none, it's all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to ordinance 2423 of the City of Dunedin, amending section 107-32, outdoor dining regulations of the City of Dunedin Land Development Code to provide outdoor hospitality and sidewalk regulations and amending Appendix C, development charges and impact fees, to remove the fee for conditional use for outside dining and and add right-of-way use agreement fee. Has anyone on the board had any ex parte regarding this item? No. Deputy Clerk?
We're going to swear in now for item 2B. Any wishing to speak, please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Staff?
Thank you, Chair. Members of the board, George Kinney. All right, just turn that off. George Kinney on behalf of the Community Development Department. So I will be tackling this particular section amendment. This is an amendment to Section 10732, which is formerly known as our outdoor dining regulations. And I'll kind of walk you through a brief PowerPoint presentation, then happy to answer any questions at the end. The intent of this effort was to, first and foremost, clearly separate the regulations into two areas. One being outdoor hospitality, and that would be an area that's occurring solely on private property within the confines of the existing lot lines. The second was to then identify and articulate rules and regulations for the sidewalk cafe, which are those types of things, if you can picture the living room, where it's occurring in a city right-of-way, and those have and will continue to require city commission approval through a right-of-way use agreement. So we think we've accomplished that with this ordinance. We have separated those two provisions, so you'll see 10732 now broken into two clearly distinct sections, each with clear definitions preceding each section. Why is an outdoor dining permit needed? So this was a question that came up as we were working through this process over the last year and a half or so. An outdoor hospitality, by definition, does not require a building permit. So where the city can actually conduct a proper life safety congestion review that would normally occur when a building permit is submitted. So in other words, if you're doing outdoor dining, if we don't have notice from a city perspective, we would not know whether occupancy issues, whether parking issues, whether bathroom issues are appropriately accommodated. Secondly, it provides an opportunity for the city to assure that adequate parking, restroom facilities, and fire safety egress measures are provided as part of that subordinate operation. And finally, it's really necessary for a codified record. You heard some discussion about code compliance and how that process works through the first ordinance. Those provisions are necessary to go to a code enforcement board or to enter into a chronic nuisance provision. And absent those, we have no legal standing. Now, I just kind of want to take some time to walk through some of the major significant changes between the existing ordinance as it sits and the proposed ordinances before you for your consideration. And I'll just kind of walk through each of these bullet points. And I kind of already touched on the first one. The idea was to separate the provisions for private property applications and right-of-way applications. So that is, again, outdoor hospitality, think private. Sidewalk cafe, think public right-of-way use. And the inclusion of clear definitions, which again are articulated in both entries to those two separate sections. And then an overall size. So a lot of comment has been thrown around with regards to how big can these areas be? What are the limitations? What are the sizes that some businesses will move to? So. And from our perspective, where we landed, this is really a self-regulating document in the sense that it's really, from the city's perspective, the parking, the capacity, the occupancy limitations that will regulate the size of that area. But as a safeguard, what we've done is, in the current ordinance, there is a conditional use provision for any size that exceeds 500 square feet. What we've done is we said we want to move a larger size business operation to a design review process, and we set that limit at 2,000 square feet. And you can kind of see that in that graphic located below in the slide here. This is an actual representation of the Blair nightclub with the existing building configuration, a couple of out parcels. You can see the configuration of the lot, roughly 40 feet wide and 190 feet deep. And you can see what that 2,000 square foot area might look embedded into that particular property. Now, again, I want to say that's the 2,000 square foot limitation, but if the parking and the restrooms aren't there to support that 2,000 square feet, you're likely to get something a little bit smaller than that. So there'll be some business decisions that will need to be made as part of providing those restrooms, providing those parking areas. And of course, as you all know, there are some different incentives for downtown parking than there are outside the CRA. The next bullet point is that current conditional use process, as I just mentioned, would be modified to a design review process. So again, 500 square feet was the max before you had to go to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. to do a public review of an expanded outdoor dining area above that 500 square feet. This provision recommends that that, again, be moved to not more than 2,000 square feet and then subject to design review. So that is 1,500 square feet more than would be offered under the current proposal.
George, can you go back to that slide?
Sure.
So you've got the 25 by 80 outdoor hospitality area defined there, but there's a lot of additional space between the food trailer and the existing building and also towards Honey Lane. What prevents that from being used as outdoor space as well?
So as part of the permit process, that outdoor dining area has to be defined, and it has to be delineated. So that configuration is just a configuration that we brought up. That configuration can be whatever the business owner decides they want that outdoor area to be.
Okay.
And that's part of that approval process as we're working through those permits.
So how would that be delineated, just for the help of everybody to understand?
So currently, the way it's delineated is it's going to be by permit. So they'll provide a record of that area that they want defined. And there's also some requirements for some perimeter fencing, railing, perimeter barriers, if you will, to kind of encase that outdoor dining area.
Okay.
Which would all be shown as part of that permit process.
So that'd be in the permit. So if they started putting more tables around it than what was approved, then that could be a violation of that permit.
That's
because
correct.
it's different than what was applied for, correct?
That's correct, and that's the way it currently exists. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
George, can I ask one question?
Sure.
While we're at this point. So I'm a little confused and trying to understand the less than 500 feet, the 500 to 1,999 feet, and then the 2,000 and greater. What happens or what needs to happen from an owner standpoint at each one of those steps?
So the 500 square feet is the current limit. So the current limit, so if you came in today under the current regulations and you want a 600 square foot outdoor dining area, we would say that needs to go to the Board of Adjustment and Appeal for review. Because it's above that 500, it's elevated to a public review process. What we're suggesting is we will move that to a design review process, but that limit will go from 500 square feet to 2,000 square feet. So anything, if this is adopted, anything under 2,000 square feet would be approved administratively. Anything above 2,000 square feet then would enter that public review process in a design review form. Did I answer your question?
So is the 500 feet still in play? Or is everything then between 0 and?
No, we're proposing that the 500 square foot be struck in favor of the 2,000 square feet.
Right, thank you.
One of the other provisions of the current regulation is the permit is not transferable. We have suggested as part of this rewrite that the permit becomes transferable, and that is if the operation that's approved remains exactly the same as was originally approved. So you can transfer the permit. However, if the new owner then decides that they want to do something a little bit larger, they would have to come back in for that review. With respect to, and this kind of gets back to Mr. Benjamin's question on defining that outdoor dining area. This is just kind of a simple illustration that shows how that might look with that commercial use in the foreground, the outdoor dining area defined behind it. That outdoor dining area then would be delineated through requirements of not more than 42 inches of either plantings, railings, or fencing. And then this ordinance actually goes a step further to protect those properties that are occupied by a residential use. So if you kind of follow that graphic around in a circle, you'll see that the property applying for the permit is a commercially used property. The property to the left and to the right are commercially used, and then you can see where the ones kind of in the upper left-hand corner are under a residential use. So when you have that common property line, what this ordinance does is it recommends a more significant barrier between those two neighboring properties. And I say that with a caveat because that barrier can be waived if the residential use property wants to have that waived. So if you move into one of those residential sites and you say, and this person's asking for an outdoor dining permit, and you say, really, I want to really enjoy that property and walk to it, those two, the property owner and the permit holder, can say, we're waiving that particular provision.
Can you say what the fencing requirement is?
I'm sorry?
What is the fencing requirement?
So the fencing required to be a fence up to 8 feet in height.
Thank you.
If I were to sell my home and a new person comes in, does the process start all over again? Or
No,
is it-
sir. No, sir, that permit's issued, and as long as that property owner is continuing to use that property as it was issued by permit, that new property owner is coming in knowing full well what is occurring on that
Okay.
site.
All
So
right.
they are not subject to coming back in. This was hit on a little bit in the previous presentation, but we did also incorporate nuisance provisions. There's a reference to some of the exact language that Jennifer Bramley just noted with respect to chronic nuisance. So that is cited in the new language as a reference, and that could lead potentially to revocation. But it's more of a progressive kind of route, if you will. It starts with those establishing that nuisance activity, it goes to the action plan, and then depending on how the applicant responds to that action plan, it can move forward favorably, or it could move to the next level of potentially revocation. And then finally, I think the issue that you're going to hear most about this evening is vacating the property after 11 p.m. We are recommending that that be removed from this particular request. It is obviously in the current ordinance. And I would say to you that in removing that, there is still the provision in the ordinance that talks about the limited legal hours of operation of the actual business itself, and this outdoor dining area is still tied to that. So once the business shuts down, the outdoor dining area must also shut down. Finally, on the implementation side, what we are proposing as part of this ordinance, an adoption, is a 3-year grace period for applicants to come in to pull their permits, have those reviews, and make those decisions on moving forward. This graph that you can see below is a product of some inquiries where folks asked, how many properties in the city could potentially take advantage of this outdoor dining provision. This is obviously a worst-case scenario because this assumes any zoning category that would allow the property would be doing this use, and as you know, that's not going to happen. There's a lot of other uses, but you can see that where these could occur are downtown core on A and C streets, also in what's called a tourist facility district, our form-based districts, our neighborhood business district, our general business district, our shopping center district, and our commercial plaza districts. So that leads to a total potential of 780 parcels or so out of the 13,800 parcels that exist in the city of Dunedin. So the max percentage based on those counts is about 5.5%. And again, I would say you can cut 3/4 of that right off the top because most of these properties are used for doctors' offices and other uses that might be permitted in those zoning categories. So you're not realistically going to have that situation, but this is a max scenario. Again, on the implementation side, one of the things I definitely want to make very clear is that past written approvals are intended to be honored. So any property currently occupied by or proposing outdoor hospitality shall comply with these regulations on or prior to September 1, 2027 with the following exceptions. And those are: 1, any current outdoor hospitality area that has received a conditional use approval certainly shall and can continue pursuant to the conditions of that approval. Any current outdoor hospitality area that has received written city permissions may continue pursuant to those written approvals. And any current outdoor hospitality area that has properly applied for and received an outdoor dining permit prior to today may continue under those approvals, provided the area and seating approvals authorized by that approval have not expanded. What we're seeing out there is some permit approvals which have clearly expanded beyond what they were approved for. So they'll have some decisions to make on whether or not they want to come back into compliance with that existing permit or reapply under the new rules and see if there's an opportunity for more seating in the areas that they've occupied.
So you're saying not everything is grandfathered, correct? I mean, if they have already added some extra appurtenances or whatever, then what?
No, great question, Ms. Kynes. So when we say grandfather, what we would be talking about is any outdoor seating area that was established prior to 2011 when this ordinance came into play. So if that outdoor dining ordinance is consistent with what they had prior to 2011, that would be allowed to continue. However, if that business expanded after 2011 and no permit was received for that expansion, they would have to come back in. They basically
And go under the new?
They basically expanded a non-conforming use, right? My final slide for you all is there was a meeting held by the BRC a couple of weeks ago on July 10th. That's 2022. That should be 2024, obviously. This did not make it into your existing ordinance package, so these are for your consideration, but these were suggestions that came out of that final meeting, and that was to modify the fencing material to include wood as an option. So you'll find that under 107-32.3 outdoor hospitality. Fencing or railing, it used to say fencing or railing shall be limited to material made of PVC. We're just suggesting that the word would be included in that, so there are some additional options for those property owners. The second piece of this is requiring a sound attenuation plan. There was a lot of discussion at the BRC with regards to when a sound attenuation plan should be provided. So the suggested language based on some of that feedback is that a sound attenuation plan would be provided when an adjoining property is occupied by residential use, and then the plan would be prepared by a professional and submitted with that permit application. So those are generally the changes I have. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions, and I do have some information on the nuisance regulations if you have questions on those, but otherwise happy to answer any questions you might have.
George, quick question for you on the modified fencing material to include wood. It talks about no more than 50% opaque. Does that include that 8-foot wall as a buffer between?
Yeah, no, that's a separate section, Mr. Benjamin. So if there is a section above that that talks about the 8-foot requirement, and the opaque is taken out of that.
Okay, so that has to be a solid wall so that it stops the sound waves?
Yes.
As best possible?
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions?
So how many outdoor areas do we have currently?
We have 25 permitted, but we have probably, let's grab a sheet here. We did kind of an informal windshield of the downtown CRA, and we have about 57 businesses that could take advantage of it, and about 30 that the way they're structured now would be subject to the new regulations, but we have 25 permitted. Now that's citywide, the permitted ones. So in the downtown, we have about 16 permitted. Well, not about, we do have 16 permitted.
George, 16 permitted downtown, 25 overall? Total, and then 30 will be subject to new regs.
So there are a few out there that we see that have outdoor dining that have not been permitted at this point.
Any other questions? Hearing none. So then, we're open for public input.
I will share again that we did receive several comments, public comments via e-comment and email. Those have been distributed and will be made part of the record. Also on item 2B, we do have one representative who has registered to speak for the group. So that will be a 10-minute comment, up to 10 minutes, should they need it. That is Katie Ducharme-Procisi.
Hi there.
If you could kindly confirm your name, address, and confirm that you've been sworn in, please.
Perfect. Katie Ducharme-Procisi. My address is 630 Athens Street, and I have been sworn in.
And can I confirm who you'll be speaking on behalf of?
Sure. Dre Gonzalez, Larry Hearn, Lisa, and I always pronounce your name wrong, Lisa, I'm sorry, San Pietro, and Shane, I'm sorry, Shane. Worth, oh yeah, duh, sorry. Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. My name is Katie Ducharme-Persisi. I'm a Dunedin business owner, also the chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and I own 2 homes here in Dunedin by the stadium, 637 Beltrees and 630 Athens Street. I strongly support removing the word vacate from our current ordinance. Businesses open past 11 p.m. should be allowed to utilize their entire premises, including outdoor space, until they close. Our existing noise ordinance, enforced by local sheriff's office, already ensures noise levels remain reasonable past 11 p.m. Currently, our downtown patrol officer shift ends at 11 p.m. To address this and balance both businesses and residents, the city should extend the sheriff's patrol officer later, most likely until 3 a.m. when the last bar closes. I'm not advocating for loud music on outdoor patios past 11 p.m. just for patrons to step outside for a conversation or to be with their dog or to smoke. Interestingly, if business owners cover their patios, the vacate the patio ordinance wouldn't apply. However, some property owners may be prohibited to cover their patios, or businesses can't afford to install the cover, thus unfairly penalizing these establishments. Imagine if we were forced inside our homes at 11 p.m. and couldn't go outside. That wouldn't be right. Our homes are regulated by a noise ordinance, and businesses should be as well, not by the unfair vacate rule. Please allow these businesses to operate fully during their normal business hours and extend the sheriff's patrol until later to address any noise concerns. Thank you for your consideration. I'm also speaking today on behalf of a business owner in Dunedin who is a member of our Chamber of Commerce, Helen Courtney, the owner of Reboot. So I'll be speaking for her. My parents moved to Dunedin 35 years ago. My husband George and I have rented and owned homes in Dunedin since 2007, and we currently live in downtown core. We've watched this community grow a lot over the years and have supported almost every shop, restaurant, and charitable organization that we can. Wherever our travels take us, we continue to feel at home here and enjoy everything the city offers. When we decided to invest our life savings into becoming a bigger part of this community, we chose to open a business we are passionate about and something we felt residents from all over Tampa Bay would enjoy. We carefully planned and hoped for our unique concept at Reboot that would appeal to all people of all ages, and thankfully it does. Like our fellow business owners, we have had our challenges over the last few years trying to keep our business afloat and have faced we have faced challenges over the last few years trying to keep our businesses afloat and have faced another one in recent months. Reboot has a lively indoor space, but George and I have always felt that it's important to have a comfortable outside space and a sanctuary with from the stimulating vibe inside. Since 2018, our guests have been enjoying our patio where you can find chill music, a large beautiful oak tree, and friends chatting. In the last 6 years, we've been open and have never received a citation for noise or occupancy in regarding our small patio. However, a select few residents continuing to try and change the way businesses have been operating for over the years are now targeting our business. In effort to engage with more residents and business owners, we felt it was important to share our experience and make locals aware that our city is now enforcing 11 p.m. vacate rule because we, number one, don't have an awning, and number two, have an outdoor dining permit. Since our neighborhood bars and restaurants were open during later hours, we did not think we were breaking any ordinances. This is confusing for everyone, and it seemed to have shocked our community. The overwhelming response from locals is clear. The majority of Dunedin residents, business owners, hospitality workers, and visitors do not want to be regulated to a curfew and be told to vacate an outside space on their own property or business establishment that we've enjoyed for years already. Businesses not only choose to use their outdoor spaces in later hours, there is a need for them for residents and hospitality workers. Not everyone has a 9-to-5 job, and those people deserve the freedom to sit outside. We operate a business downtown, but more importantly, we've been residents of Dunedin for almost 20 years. And when I've decided to move our family downtown, we fully understood that we were moving 1 block away from Main Street and in a downtown core property district. We chose to be closer to active streets and shops where you'll find the comforting sounds of people socializing, enjoying themselves. We chose Dunedin because it's safe, inclusive of all people, and has the potential for future growth. We encourage the city officials to please remove the vacate terms in the outside dining ordinance. A noise ordinance is in place to protect us and other downtown core residents from excessive noise over 65 decibels, which is very favorable for residents like myself and family. Thank you, Helen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Arend.
Hi, I'm Mary Arendt, and I live at 938 Loudon Avenue. I am against taking the word out
Have you
of-
been sworn in?
Oh, yes.
Thanks.
Yes, sorry.
No worries.
I am against taking the word vacate out of the proposed ordinance. In a community that's, is the quality of life that is important, not just the entertainment aspect for the tourist and for the partygoers. The proposed ordinance goes beyond downtown area. This is a citywide ordinance, and it should not have to take into effect other areas. I'd like to go ahead and see this ordinance kicked down the road for the next 6 to 8 months and have other public workshops to other communities. This is going to affect the Causeway. It's going to affect the Coca-Cola redevelopment area. This goes way beyond just downtown. If you're going to go ahead and have a downtown ordinance, then so do it. But not go ahead and involve the whole city. I mean, other places have ordinance for historical society, you know, for downtown historical areas. So if we're going in that direction, you need to go ahead and really look at this and treat the city the correct way and, you know, not isolate and, you know, do all this to the whole city. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Allen.
Tina Avila.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tina Avila, owner of Casa Tina's in Dunedin, and I have been sworn in. Okay, I wrote this on a phone like my kids would do, and then I can't read it. Downtown cores are meant to be vibrant. When we started our restaurant, Casa Tina's, in 1992, that was not the case. Except for a few months between Christmas and Mother's Day, this downtown literally had tumbleweeds floating down Main Street. To combat this, for decades, independent businesses such as ours, Flanagan's, Dunedin Brewery, along with the Merchants Association, have worked tirelessly through free community events to promote our downtown and grow our economic stability and prosperity. And we've been successful. We are the envy of communities throughout Pinellas, Hillsborough, and other Florida counties. Being too restrictive in a city's downtown core, that is the point, it's the downtown core. I do agree with the lady that just spoke, is that the downtown should be treated, the core should be treated differently from other parts of Dunedin, because this is, the business of the downtown core is to be the economic and vibrant part of the city. Being too restrictive in that core stifles creativity, growth, and sustainability. And we need to fight for our rights to be able to operate in a way that's necessary to continue this culture that Dunedin has created, prosperous, joyous, and a lively center we are envied for. Secondly, many of our downtown hospitality workers enjoy that quality of life that the previous resident spoke about. Quality of life is for everybody, not just those that work 9 to 5 or retirees. The time to unwind and relax may be after their shift when they have the chance to frequent the multiple businesses that operate past 11 p.m. The outdoor seating benefits are valued by both that worker and the said business who has made a business plan based upon those people's butts in seats during those hours. This is an economic issue as well. If you take those seats away after 11 p.m. and reduce the occupancy level of those businesses, they might not succeed. Please think and act with all members of our community's members' needs met equally. I hope that someday we can cheers with a glass of wine or a beer at Reboot or Dun Brew one evening after 11 p.m. when I get off of work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hunter Bryant.
Hi, I'm Hunter Bryant. I live at 518 Beltree Street. I have been sworn in. I've lived in Dunedin for over 10 years, and I have worked at Dunedin Brewery for 10 years. Some people have chosen to make the issues we are talking about today their business, but like a lot of employees and business owners, I did not choose to have this issue affect me. It directly affects my work, which is my home, so it affects my entire life every single day. I have been affected by a lot of decisions that our government has made in the 10 years I've lived here, from the decision to have paid parking, to the mask mandate during COVID, and the sound ordinance that is very lenient to residents. Myself and my fellow coworkers have had people spit at us, cuss at us, call us names, and the list goes on and on. All because of decisions that were out of our hands and out of our boss's hands. We have locals that still refuse to come to Dunedin Brewery because we followed the law and enforced the mask mandate. From the rising housing market to the ridiculous insurance rates, a lot of us have already been pushed out of this amazing little town. And I fear that this issue that we're talking about isn't really about noise, but a battle against an alternative lifestyle. Our lifestyle, a bohemian lifestyle that starts work at 5 or 6 p.m. and clocks out anywhere from 2 to 4 a.m., or sometimes even later. A lifestyle where music is our religion and beers are used to not have a good time, but to have an even better time. We are downtown every week to serve smiles and to have fun and greet all the tourists. Locals aren't just regulars, but they're our family. And we are the frontline workers. We have a real pulse on what is happening in our town, more of a pulse than anyone, I think. We know why people are here, how they heard about us, and where they came from. We talk to so many people every day that are confused that this is going on, locals and people from out of town. And not only are they confused, but so are we. Confused as to why a curfew of any sort would even be considered in the first place. I do not want just to be heard today by my community, I want to be considered. And I want all of the employees downtown to be considered when making these decisions. The 11 p.m. curfew is ridiculous, and the language should be taken out of the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lex Carr.
Good evening. My name is Lex Carr. I reside at 3200 Burlingame Court, and I have been sworn in. Got it. Just to start, thank you for hearing us all out today. Let me go ahead and start. First off, I want to say that I am in support of removing the word vacate or the idea of a vacating time from the ordinance verbiage and allowing businesses to use 100% of their property at their own discretion without unnecessary oversight from residents or local government. I believe that a vacate policy will not only reduce the income of all of the employees in town that are service workers, barbacks, cooks, bartenders, managers, everyone. I have personally worked at 7 different businesses in downtown, and I can say with an assurity, the better half of my income comes after 11 p.m. My girlfriend works in downtown. All of my close friends are in the service industry, and what you are suggesting, or what is being proposed by some, is to reduce their mean income significantly. You will then reduce patronage to this town. You will then reduce the overall economy of downtown Dunedin, which is absolutely based on tourists. Not only that, by creating this conflict, you now have a situation where you're going to cause employees, and not even owners, to have to start confrontations with most patrons who are not going to be familiar with this ordinance, and it will only serve to create less traffic and tourism through our town. I went to Dunedin Middle. I graduated from Dunedin High School. I have been here my whole life. I already can't afford to live here because of the things that have happened. So to see that this is trying to be furthered just is blatantly regressive to the success of this town. It is predatory on our local businesses, and I don't think that the complaints of a few should not only affect all of the owners, but the people who don't make a lot of money that try to live here. You know, it is ridiculous to think that by reducing the overall business in town that it'll make this place better. It simply won't. And I hope that you consider not only the business owners who pay the better part of the taxes of this town and are part of the Downtown Dunedin Merchants Association, but the dishwashers, the street cleaners, the barbacks, and everyone that does the dirty work for this place to be as great as it is, because we all work, and most of those people don't get out until the evening time, and they have every right to sit outside, have a conversation, take a breath of fresh air, and enjoy themselves without a conflict from every business owner saying you have to leave or stay inside. Thank you.
Deborah Chase.
Hello, I'm Deborah Chase. I live at 548 Chicago Avenue, and I have been sworn in. I'm just a resident. I've been coming to Dunedin for 20 years, and 4 years ago, my husband and I retired and moved here. And the reason we love Dunedin is because of the diversity of the generations here. You have young people, families, and retirees like me, not to mention all the tourists. And I just feel like, you know, if you hurt these businesses, you're killing the town that we fell in love with. That's why we're here. That's why people come here and love it here. It's about all the different people, the young people, the old people, everyone together living and letting everyone else live. So I just want to speak up for the businesses.
Thank you.
Kevin Connell. Kevin Connell. We'll move on to Michael Kotherman.
Hello, my name is Michael Kotherman. I have been sworn in. I live at 582 Baywood Drive North, and I own 933 Huntley Avenue. Regarding the OHI, the word vacate, I need my glasses, I can't do that without those. Regarding the word vacate, I'd like to thank you guys for recommending to remove that. It's restricting the right to assemble, including the owners of the property. I couldn't be able to go on my own property after 11 p.m. with the word vacate in there. That's clearly unconstitutional, and I don't want the taxpayers to have to support a lawsuit that would surely happen. While an OHI may be needed for sidewalk cafes, it's not needed for the private areas we're talking about. Every BTR already has plenty of requirements. There's a lot of work. I went through this. It took me 2 years to open my business from the day I walked in and had my design review. 2 years to open a business. That's a burden that's both financial and regulatory on small mom and pop businesses in this town. Now, other people who are, let's say, large developers or chain restaurants, they can eat that up. They don't care. They'll fight all those rules and get their businesses in there because they have 6, 7 restaurants. They know how to work the system. But mom and pops, who are all the people out here, can't do that. They're going to go out of business. Does each and every BTR holder that has a table outside, including, say, a restaurant on the causeway or a place up the road, are they going to have to get this? Because we removed it down to 0 and they got to go to a design review. If they have a table outside and they're a restaurant, do they have to now get a new permit? And with this new permit, do they have to count their bathrooms and their parking spots? How many businesses are going to be shut down or have to just shut up all of their stuff? So again, I'd say the OHI should not even exist. What's the plan for these percentage of these 786 permits? If a professional office has a table outside, when do they start to be called hospitality? It was dining, now it's hospitality. Will you shutter businesses that we love if they cannot complete the new permits for bathrooms and parking? I know that they kind of put in here that we're going to have some grandfathering, but nobody wants to see Skips or Flanagan's closed down because they don't have the room, physical room, to put in new bathrooms and make parking. It's just not going to happen. You close them down, there'll be a war. Other things in this are weird operation things. You have to move your patio furniture inside. My concrete tables weigh 1,200 pounds. They are Cat 5 resistant, but the wording says I have to bring them inside. I get a fine, and if I don't do that 3 times in a row, now I'm a nuisance. And you could shut my business down because I didn't bring my concrete tables that it takes a forklift to lift to move them in. Are these same restrictions on the place right across from me that's a large apartment complex that has hundreds of patio tables outside? Why just a business? Am I done?
10 minutes, 10 seconds.
Okay. Last is, thank you for your time. I know you guys put a lot of hard work into this. Thanks again.
Dennis Falzone.
Falzone, I think. Falzone?
Dennis Falzone. Okay. Callie Carew.
Hi there, my name's Kala Carew. I live at 1095 Mary Jane Lane, and I have been sworn in. Okay. You really, I appreciate that you are looking to take that word vacate the property out. I'm a 7-year resident of Dunedin. I moved here from a town in New Jersey. Got a problem with that? It was a Jersey Shore town called Belmar. And when I'm 71 years old, and my whole life, there were 6 bars along the ocean front there. And people decided, between some new residents and some developers, that they were a nuisance. And they created a regulation where bars in all of Monmouth County used to close at 2 o'clock. In the town of Belmar, suddenly they closed at 12. And the enforcement started. And the police came in at exactly 12 o'clock and 1 second, and if there was a patron in there walking out, the business got fined. Then they moved it to enforcing even people as they were leaving. If they were walking down the street, talking loud or something like that, they fined the business. And it went on and on. End of the story is, the people who did this are no longer running the town, except the damage was done. Out of those 6 bars that were there, for all of my 70 years, there's 1 left. The rest are closed, and the rest have been replaced by multi-million-dollar houses along the ocean. I don't want to see that happen to Dunedin. I moved here because this is a fun place. You know, there's lots of great things to do. Let's keep it, you know, I appreciate what you want to do. The outdoor space is important, and I love it here, and I think you do too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Devin Krebs.
Hello, everyone. My name is Devin Krebs, and I live at 412 Beltrees, and I have been sworn in. And I also own the Seventh Sun Brewery at 1012 Broadway in Dunedin. Essentially, most of the points that I wanted to make today have been made by many of the people who just came up here and spoke. I just wanted to put in my 2 cents that I also support removing the word vacate from this document because of everything that they were saying before. You know, we have a noise ordinance. That's the reason that it exists. You need to put a vacate on our patios in order to police the noise because the noise ordinance exists for that reason. Additionally, you know, I feel like, honestly, things have gotten quieter here. Personally, what I've noticed at night, like it used to be a little bit crazier, and now it seems like since COVID, it's been a lot quieter. I know for our business, we used to be open midnight every night, and we have essentially, you know, we're pretty much dead by 11. So, I mean, this isn't even really going to affect me that much, but part of what I love about this town is there's a life to it, you know, whether it's late at night or during the day, there's people out and about, they're enjoying themselves. And that's part of what I love about Dunedin. You know, I live by the stadium, and the stadium's loud. I like it. You know, it's part of what I like about living here. So, additionally, I want to say too that, you know, to Kala's point before, like enforcement, all those things, that's incredibly difficult to do, and it's a slippery slope. So I appreciate your consideration and all the work that you guys have been doing on this, and I hope that you remove the term vacate from the language. Thank you.
Thank you.
Noel McCormick. Melissa McCormick.
Hi, I'm Melissa McCormick, and I live at 247 Scotland Street, and I have been sworn in. Thanks. Again, my name's Melissa McCormick. I live at 247 Scotland Street. I was born and raised here in Dunedin, and I've lived in my home, the Octagon House there on Scotland Street, for 20 years. And let me just say, I've been referenced in a number of other comments. I'm not here to fight or to battle. I'm here to hopefully find some sort of compromise. The reality is a lot of these bars have moved into the residential areas. I live in a historical home that is part of the downtown overlay. That was important enough to protect the charm and quaintness of Dunedin that there's extra zoning requirements on what we can and can't do with our facilities in our home. So, and that's part of being there as well. But when the bars move in directly across the street and you laugh about whether it's called raucous behavior or people playing cornhole, when it's 4 feet from your bedroom window at 3 a.m. in the morning, it isn't funny anymore. You can't sleep. So I'm a longtime Rotarian, and one of the caveats and principles of Rotary is it fair to all concerned. And I really don't think, you keep hearing 11 o'clock mentioned as, I want to be able to be outside at 11. That's fine, but what it is being outside at 3 a.m. doing the same thing that you're doing at 11. And in a residential area, which Scotland Street is, that's not a good compromise. That's not a compromise. So, you know, I don't think it was even looked at. Could it be midnight and 1 instead of 11 and 12? You know, is there some buffer that could be so that when, as someone mentioned before, the property line of the business is the property line of the complainant, and that is the case here, the rules should probably be a little bit different than for someone whose business is right downtown in the area where there are no residents around. So that's what I'm hoping for, because if we're being honest here, there's no dining happening after 11 o'clock. It's outdoor drinking and socializing. Whether I want to participate in that or not is not the point. The value of my home is not the point. The point is it fair to have their property rights of being able to be outside and be loud? I know we have the noise ordinance. I know it's a separate ordinance. And there's a decibel level that is in place at 65 decibel. It's hard to enforce. All of that burden of enforcement goes to the resident. We have to call the police. We have to get the police out there, give them our name to get them to enforce that. If it's people outside talking and socializing, they'll be quiet when the police show up. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Pat Miles.
My advertisement is on the back, for those of you. Hi, Pat Miles, 944 Michelle Circle, and I have been sworn in.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm privileged to wear several hats in this city, and for that, I'm very grateful. I'm the marketing committee of the chamber. I'm the vice president of the DDMA, but the hat I'm wearing this evening is for the website I promote, GoTonight.com. The website promotes live music in the area and in the state. And the 50-plus places that we have in Dunedin that has live music. All of these places add to our economy. Live music makes our town vibrant. Our weather allows for outdoor seating, outdoor activities, and the ability to be outside is very positive for our area. The restrictions, we all have to compromise, and I understand we need to compromise, but we do need to have the businesses be allowed to do their business. The majority of residents and visitors are repeat spenders, spending their money with all the businesses who live in the music, who love the music events, tipping the musicians which appreciate the live music. In my opinion, the majority should have the stronger vote. Several weeks ago, I brought 100 people to the city, July 2nd through the 6th. I had only compliments about our city, how walkable it is, how many options we have to have fun day and night, how at night we can go and listen to music at all different genres and be safe. I'm also glad to say that I was also glad that I didn't have to tell them they had to be home by midnight because there was an ordinance. I also want you to point out, I want to point out an unintended consequence about vacate. Think about the musician who has just gotten rid of, or just gotten done with a 3-hour gig. Takes them 20 to 25 minutes to wrap up their chords. Takes them 20 to 25 minutes to go find their car, bring it back to the establishment and load their equipment. Now we're at the hour, we're at the 11 o'clock. Can't they sit down and have a beverage? Can't they enjoy their snack that they were given by the establishment? I do want to thank you for your time, and I want you to remember that music makes the town go round. And if you're looking for some fun, go to GoTonight.com.
Kelly Morris. Kelly Morris. Kimberly Platt.
Aloha, my name is Kimberly Platt. I own the property at 516 Grant Street, and I'm the owner of the Honu Restaurant.
And have you been sworn?
Oh, yeah, so, yeah, I've been sworn in, and I swear a lot, so I'm going to try not to do that up here. I'm kind of thrown because reading through this, I sit on the BRC board, and I didn't realize that we were going to add the word would to this. It almost made me cry. And it made me cry because we created the BRC board to actually work on this. We worked on it for 2 years. 2 hard, long years. We met a lot. We talked a lot. Everybody went out and talked. The residents talked to the residents. The businesses talked to the businesses. Some of us crossed over. That we all talked to the city. It took a lot to get where we are now. I think what we've proposed and what the city and what George is proposing here is what we all agreed on. Taking that vacate word out, it's massive. It's massive for so many things. For me personally, I don't have a dog in the fight. So I've been told, because of what we are doing, we are spending a lot of money to cover the front of our business. We made that decision to do that because of the restrictions we had. So I have to stop looking at that word wood. It's just throwing me because I'm so happy about it, because tiki is wood. And we were fighting to get that word in there, because why would I put a PVC or wrought iron fence around my beautiful, gorgeous wood structure we're doing? So that piece of it does my heart good. And when I go home to my wife tonight, she says, look what time it is. And I say, guess what's in there now? And I tell her it's the wood. She's going to be so happy. So many people put so much time and effort into this that I think that what's written should go through. All I'm asking is consideration for the immense time and effort that everybody has put into this. Everybody who stays involved, everybody that's been involved. There's so many people that are misinformed about what's happening, but we've been doing this for 2 years. I feel like I say this up here all the time when I'm here. I sit on the CRA board. I sit on the board of the chamber. I've been the president of the DDMA. I keep feeling like every time we're at this point, I'm saying the same thing. We've been doing this, and I am this passionate about it because I care about this community. You know, we put blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, you see me hobbling around. This is not because I'm sitting at a computer desk. It's because I'm in my restaurant 70 to 80 hours a week, and I'm coming to and sit on all these boards and volunteering because I love this place so much. I just want to say that it means all the people. Dunedin is for all the people. Everybody wants to be like us. Let them be like us. Let them try to be like us. It's hard to be like Dunedin. And it is the people and it is the businesses that highlight this. If we wouldn't keep thriving, we wouldn't have the people. Give us the opportunity to do this and not go backwards. Thank you.
Daniel Prather. Thank you. Jody Puccello.
Jody Pacello, 960 Parkwood Drive in Dunedin, and yes, I've been sworn in. So I've been a resident taxpayer for close to 30 years in this town, and always promoted it, always loved coming downtown, sometimes way too much. About 3.5 years ago, I opened a restaurant downtown, right in the middle of downtown, and I joined all the things just so I could learn the system. I ended up joining the task force, ended up on the head table of it after a while for some reason, then the BRC board. So it's been about 2.5 years of countless meetings, compromises, back and forth. I've spoken to, between all the meetings and all the commissions and all my customers, probably more than 1,000 people, maybe 2,000, I don't know. But I don't know maybe 5 people that want to shut this town down at 11 o'clock. People come here to visit, they come here to move here because it's a vibrant downtown area. I don't ever plan on being open at past 11, but if I do, I want it to be my choice. Just like every other owner that has a business down there, they should be able to stay open their legal time, not shut down at 11. That's about it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Nikki Simonson. Nikki Simonson.
It's not me.
Isaac Wasilewski.
Isaac Wasilewski, 2180 Santa Paula Drive, and yes, I've been sworn in. All right, so I'm both a resident and the president of the Downtown Dunedin Merchants Association. I've been part of this process for the past couple of years, first with the Downtown Task Force, and then sitting on the BRC. With this, the outdoor hospitality ordinance, no one is getting their wish list. This is not any one group's personal, like, yes, this is exactly what we want. There have been compromises on both sides, back and forth, to get to where we are today. So it is important to note that this is really to take into account all the changes that's happened in outdoor dining since the first outdoor dining ordinance was implemented back in the 2010 revision and codified in code. The average person spends about 93% of their life indoors. When COVID came, it forced people to eat outside more, and it turns out they actually enjoy being outside. And so with these concerns about noise being addressed, with whether or not the word vacate should or should not remain in it, I just want to make known that we do have a noise ordinance, as you heard in the first section, to address those complaints and concerns. With this outdoor hospitality, the revision directly ties a business's responsibility of noise compliance with their ability to use their outdoor space. For those businesses who are not keeping on track of their patrons or not keeping on track of their musicians, they can lose that ability to use that space. So unlike other municipalities, Dunedin has an objective measure of noise. Instead of relying on the subjectivity of a deputy who comes out to respond to a complaint, we have an objective measure, that being the 65 decibels. There are existing mechanisms in our ordinance to deal with bad faith actors, so let's use them. If the issue is the noise ordinance, and that noise ordinance is ineffective, then that needs to be addressed in that section, but not necessarily in this one that's just codifying the outdoor dining practices that we've seen pop up post-COVID, and that our customers and us as patrons of businesses have grown to be a custom and demand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got Andy.
I swear I put my last name on there.
For the record, please.
Yes, Andy Pols, 1942 Horseshoe Bend.
And have you been sworn in?
I have been sworn in. Thank you. Just want to say just a few points. A lot of them have already been covered by folks up here. I'm really sorry that we're even here, that we've got this far. It really should never have gone this far. There's a perception out there that it's business versus residents. It's really not the case. The vast majority of residents love what we do, love what Dunedin has become. It's just a few, and I say minority, but they're very loud, these activist residents that have brought us to this place. Unfortunately, some of them now have the backing of some special interests, big developers, and I feel they're trying to reshape what our town is. As most of us know, this old ordinance was originally written for right-of-way dining. Like we said, I think there's only one business that's currently using it. But somewhere along the lines, it got applied to every business on their own private property. To the city staff's credit, they're trying to fix this, but they're being fought again by these same residents, these same activists. They're trying to confuse the general public. They're trying to conflate this outdoor hospitality issue with the noise ordinance. We all know this has nothing to do with noise. We already have the most restrictive noise ordinance in the county. It's already in place. It's not going anywhere. All this has to do with is people in an outdoor seating area past 11. Despite the attempts at passing out misinformation flyers, they're going around town, you've seen them. They state we're gonna have bans till 3 a.m. or calling us the next Ybor City. These scare tactics, they just get quite old. It's just nothing like that. It just simply applies to those folks that wanna enjoy a smoke, be out there with their dog, they don't get off work till late. It's not just the hospitality folks too, but we got a lot of people at the hospital here. A lot of first responders, doctors, nursing assistants. They don't work the typical 9 to 5 shift. A lot of them come in, they don't get off till midnight. They like to go, maybe have a cigarette, enjoy a beer on a patio. Ironically, if someone wanted to say have a smoke, they couldn't sit out on the patio, but they would be allowed to leave the property, go out on the sidewalk and have a cigarette. It's perfectly legal. That doesn't make any sense though, does it? I don't know of any other town or city that has a curfew like this. We just can't let it happen here. The last point I want to make is that if these folks, if it's successful in persuading the LPA and commission to implement this curfew, then it really needs to apply to everybody, not just the businesses. These apply to the residents too, because resident patios can make noise as well. All residents should be forced to vacate and go inside off their own patios at 11. You imagine that if you're having a cocktail on your patio or talking with a family member, clock strikes 11, got to go inside. No. That's just silly. So I say we just go with the city's recommendation. Let's remove the word vacate and get back to being Dunedin. Thanks.
Thank you.
Michael Bryant.
Hello again. Michael Bryant, 518 Beltry Street, and I have been sworn in. I, like most of the community are expressing tonight, oppose ordinance requirements to vacate the patios, beer gardens, and effectively any outdoor area of private property, commercial private property, at any time, especially during legal hours of business and proper zoning requirements being met. I will personally always stand against any public curfews. The commercially zoned properties in question did not move into residential areas, but have existed in their locations as long as the city zoning has existed. They just haven't been activated as they are now activated. Just like a residential property might be empty at one point, but somebody decides to build on that. Their neighbors don't get to tell them that they don't get to build their property. The original ordinance was intended for right-of-way sidewalk cafes, which was originally proposed by the living room's original owner. Only in the follow-up to restrictions brought on by COVID-19 in 2020 has this conversation ever come to include private property. The idea of a curfew on private property, especially in the downtown core zoned activity center, historically known to be a place of nightlife, is almost baffling that some even consider it a possibility. Sound concerns should always be directed to the existing sound ordinance and nuisance laws, which is very fair to the community as a whole, in my opinion. My other concerns relate to section 107-32.3E, and any restrictions to a private entity's aesthetic or design and material choices, which I see has already been adjusted slightly. Regarding section 107-32.3E's provisions, however, they are covered elsewhere in Dunedin's land code. Signage is all covered by the existing sign ordinance, including the prohibition of advertising on umbrellas, which you'll see in that section. If included, this section also eliminates currently used options for problem solving that my family's business has personally utilized in the past, almost specifically during city-sanctioned events such as Mardi Gras, Wines the Blues, St. Patty's, Old Fashioned Christmas, and of course our own Oktoberfest. These have always been allowed in code on private property. The options proposed to be taken from us are the ability to set up a jockey box or a temporary bar. This allows us to take care of more customers instead of shoving them all inside of our property, inside of our business in a line going outside. One-off food events, which are allowed by the Department of Health, and portalets to help with demand during citywide events such as parades when people regularly come onto private property just to use the loo. We would like to still see those possibilities in the future, as we've only had our success through these temporary measures. Small independent businesses need the freedom to solve their problems creatively, and that section seems to effectively take away some of those solutions. So that's all I wanted to touch on. Appreciate your guys' time.
Thank you.
Okay, I mispronounced this earlier. John Didier?
My name's John Didier, or Didier, at 1969 Dunlow Circle, and I have been sworn in. All right, I got a number of points to make. I support removing the vacate verbiage from this ordinance. I am a small business owner here in Dunedin who has operated here in Dunedin for quite some time now. I go by John Diddy. I'm a local musician. This vacate verbiage negatively affects my physical well-being and my business on a number of fronts. It's really hot here in Florida, and frankly, a lot of the venues that I play as a musician have their live music outside, and I would prefer to perform in a less heat abrasive scenario, and therefore it's going to be later in the evening, pushing that 11 o'clock sound ordinance curfew of sorts. In addition, I would say that the general public also wants to be able to hang out outdoors when there is not oppressive heat. For safety reasons, I realize that, yeah, if you force people to vacate the patios, or now somebody wants to go enjoy a cigarette, they're now abandoning their alcoholic beverage in the bar because they're not allowed to have it on the patio, and that's a problem from a safety standpoint. As a musician, to echo what Pat said from Go Tonight, if I'm performing up to the point of 11 o'clock, I'm trying to get tips, sell merch. All of that's happening sometimes at the end of my set, and I can't do that if now suddenly everybody has to vacate the patio. And of course, for the enjoyment and freedom of most people, including myself, I want to be able to enjoy the downtown CRA for what it is. I'm a product of Dunedin, Florida. I've grown up here and lived here since 1993. I'm also a property owner and have chosen to buy property in Dunedin, Florida due to its thriving nightlife. As a smaller town in Florida, Dunedin is frankly better than most all of the other downtowns in Florida because they're just lame. They close super early. I also want to address how this current standing verbiage is being laterally weaponized to supplement the intentions of those opposed to the sound ordinance that currently stands. The problem at hand is regarding the sound, if the problem at hand is regarding the sound emanating from these outdoor patios in the zone downtown core, I would like to express my thoughts in opposition to the removal of this verbiage. I get woken up regularly by construction and yard work, and I'm not trying to dictate how those people run their business. Thank you.
Joseph Kokalakis?
Hello again, Joe Kokalakis. Still live on Buena Vista Drive, and I haven't sworn in. And this is kind of what I wanted to speak to earlier, because I do think it's a balance, obviously, between the residents and the businesses. And like many people have said, they're not opposing each other, because I think it's clear that the residents that live in the downtown core came for the very vibe that's provided by the music, by the outdoor dining. As I said earlier, you know, I've got 69 residents in apartments, and I've got 40 commercial tenants, 11 of which have outdoor seating. So they have a vested interest in this. Plus, over the course of my 38 years here, I've made friends You know, I see Kim up here, I see Tina, and you know, to see Hunter kind of shaken up here, it bothers me as someone that's been in this community for so long. But ultimately, I don't see the need to change the ordinance. I think actually, wait, back up. I believe the sound ordinance changes, the noise ordinance, I think are appropriate. I would like to clarify some of the enforcement, but that's the point. I don't want it to become a police state where we rely on enforcement. So that being said, the outdoor dining, I don't want it to be a police state where all of a sudden you've got people going around with meters when John Diddy is out playing music at midnight, and you know, because he's a good guy too. So I don't want our city to digress to that point. I do think that a clear-cut way to prevent that is to maintain the existing requirement to vacate at midnight. I think it's been misconstrued that the current requirement has businesses vacating their outdoor dining on Friday and Saturday night at midnight, which are obviously the key nights. So all we're talking about, all this fuss, is about selling beer outside from midnight to 3 a.m. on those particular nights. And I think, you know, anyone that actually is in hospitality or anywhere else, they can, you know, have drinks inside. I get it. Everybody likes and enjoys the outside. I don't think anybody, again, would shut someone down for having smokers, you know, sitting outside on their patio smoking. I just feel that it's not a big ask. Having residents in a downtown core is key to the success of that downtown core. And those residents, you know, we have to balance. And those residents that moved into my places knew the ordinances when they moved in, and the commercial tenants that leased my places knew the ordinance when they moved in. And that ordinance, when they moved in, had them shutting down their outdoor dining at midnight. So this isn't anything new. It's not a curfew that's being implemented by the city or that's being pushed by the residents. All the residents are asking, and again, I don't even live in the downtown core. I'm trying to be as objective as possible and balance the needs of my commercial tenants and the needs of my residential tenants. And I think maintaining the requirement to vacate is critical to that. Every other aspect of the new ordinance, I support.
Thank you.
David Robinson.
My name is David Robinson. I live at 351 Orangewood Drive here in Dunedin, and you have sworn me in. I would like to thank you guys for your time and service again. I appreciate you guys being here and hearing us all out. I'm wearing a shirt by a local artist. His name is Yali, and if you haven't heard of him, he's an amazing resident of Dunedin. He has made all of his money just about in Dunedin, and a lot of it comes late at night, after 11, on a patio until 3 a.m. This shirt reminds me of the brotherhood and sisterhood of this town. I think somebody spoke to that earlier. All right, so quickly, I met George and Helen Courtney at the Dunedin House of Beer many years ago when the House of Beer opened. She was a bartender, he was a patron. They met, they became in love, they started a family, they built a home, and they built a business. It's called Reboot, and it's located in the core downtown. They have the right to remain open until 3 a.m., and they are on commercial property. Now, currently, if I go outside and I'm smoking and it's 10:59, at 11 o'clock, I have to get up and put out that cigarette and go inside with my beer. Or I can throw out my beer and get off of that property. Or I can, I guess, leave and go to a different business and spend my money there, like the House of Beer. I should not, or they should not, have to get penalized by these ordinances. If I leave, that bartender at Reboot doesn't get my money anymore, and Helen and George Courtney, the owners of Reboot, are not getting any more of my money. Now, there is one option, and it's the options I've currently been taking, and that is, let's say I take my beer inside, and I think John Diddy alluded to that's not very safe. Somebody could put something in that drink while I'm not attending it. but I walk to a city sidewalk. And in this case, I've been walking across the street. I believe that's Grant Street, heading east to west there. So I'm on the other side of the sidewalk, and I'm directly in front of somebody's home, smoking a cigarette. Then my friend comes and joins me, and now we're smoking cigarettes on a public sidewalk in front of somebody's home. Now, we're not standing there. I don't want to be loitering, but what we kind of do is we kind of do the march of strikers, like a strikers march in front of it, and we're talking. And is that what you want us doing? Do you guys want us to be in front of the homes, smoking cigarettes and talking? Or we could be back there enjoying our beer on the patio with our cigarettes and our beer. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.
Jade Seibert.
Which Seibert?
Jade.
Jade just left.
Okay.
You got one left, so.
John Shine.
John Shine, 217 Aberdeen Street. And so what I heard George say was 57 businesses in the CRA, 16 are kind of cool. So I did the math, 41 are going to have a problem. They have to fix the outdoor dining situation. Is that right, George? Yes. So what I heard was parking, restrooms, and 8-foot fences. What I keep hearing is noise is a problem, but it's more of a symptom of a growing, vibrant downtown. If you want to blame somebody, you got to blame the city that they did it. They created a vibrant downtown. Not the businesses, not the residents. The city did it, right? The city makes many allowances for big developers, special interests, and the city's own interests. Where else would you put a 20,000 square foot, whatever this is, office, right? What I'm asking for you to do is to consider the impact of this ordinance on small businesses and on residents. George had a great slide where it had an 8-foot fence and some residents over here and some commercial properties over there. We didn't become a vibrant downtown by regulating it. We did it through incentives. We did it through exceptions. We did it through grants. We did it through the CRA, right? All I'm asking for you to do is to take a look at that and say regulation doesn't fix it all, right? It takes money. It takes exceptions. It takes expedited processes. It takes allowances. Not every business is going to fit into that box that is this outdoor dining. It doesn't work that way. And if you think it can get done in 3 years, that's George's problem, I guess. But it's a lot of work for everyone to get done in 3 years. Really have to take a look beyond regulation. You have to take a look at both the residents and the businesses. You have to take a look at what the money's going to be. How does that impact? And you've got to find the money to really do the right grants. You've got to expedite the processes. You've got to have a law in place that allows for allowances and exceptions. Not everybody fits into the box. What is the answer? If you don't do that, businesses go out of business. Our vibrant downtown becomes less than it is. And for what? For what? For symptoms of a growing downtown that's having growing pains. Look at more than regulation. You need to do more than just that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shannon Smith.
Thank you. Shannon Smith, 1268 Bayshore Boulevard, and I have been sworn. I won't echo the comments that Joe Kay and Melissa made, but I will go back as a member of the BRC that has been alluded to tonight and one of 4 resident members of the BRC, 3 of which all are in opposition to removing the word vacate. So in terms of those residents that spent a lot of time studying this issue, the answer of removing vacate was something that 3 of the 4 were willing to be on record initially. So outside of the areas that Melissa and Joe Kay specifically spoke to, one element that we haven't talked about here is one thing this ordinance does is essentially create a new property right for outdoor dining uses. Our current ordinance has provisions in it that says that an outdoor dining permit is not transferable, quote, in any manner. And so the idea is that when a new restaurant applicant came into town and wanted to open up something that involved outdoor dining, they would go through the process of review at that particular point in time. And it was not transferable, much like a liquor license is not a transferable element from one bar owner to a new bar owner that opens up business. The current ordinance as written will actually create a new property right where the zoning letter that is designated by city staff, not subject to review by other than city staff, would create a right to do outdoor activities until 3 a.m. in perpetuity. Not knowing the current owners, if this was a Tina and Javier, if this was a Kim, we're talking about people we don't know yet, and this new ordinance revision will sort of remove the ability for the city to review and regulate those that come forward. They will be an inherited right. It creates a property right that is then transferable from our current businesses to others. And I just think that's not good policy, and I'd ask that you consider that as you think about what recommendations you would provide staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Weldon.
Bill Weldon, 656 Broadway. I have been sworn in. I just want to make one point that New York City does use a C-weighted scale. So a C-weighted scale is coming to the rest of the country for noise. The other issue is fairness, right, when it comes to outdoor dining. So there's a bar that's kind of at the center of this on Scotland Street. It sits right next to a home. That bar was started in 2018. That home was built, I believe, circa 1945, right? So just like we did with the overlay, we protected the smallest, the most vulnerable in the historic South District, which is what our neighborhood is. But it seems like with this, when you want to remove the word vacate, you're not protecting. The city is not being consistent with what it did in the overlay project, right? For a home like that. Then you move 20 feet across the street to the business that I have managed for 20 years and have lived at for 26 years, right? So let's talk business to business. We provide affordable housing and homes for retirees on fixed incomes. People talk about moving. No one's moving anywhere. What is the right that that business is being granted over the business that I reside at and manage? In other words, you're going to give them rights that are going to infringe upon my ability to attract renters to a very desired place that provides, we have a few people that work in the downtown. A gentleman talked about, there's people that they can't even live in the downtown. We provide that. Many of you have been by our property. You know it's a nice property. So, we need to be protected as well, just like the overlay did. I support leaving the word vacate in the ordinance to protect properties in our neighborhood like mine and the one right next to the bar that's been spoken on. Thank you very much.
Deb Williams. Thank you. And Jason Williams. So, Chair, these are all the comment cards I have received for item 2B. I would now open it up to any who would like to speak who have not filled out a comment card.
I filled out a comment card, sorry about that.
No worries.
My name is Jason Seibert. I live at 1756 Ranchwood Drive South in Dunedin, and I have been sworn in. I think that water's wet and the sky is blue, and that downtown Dunedin is an entertainment district. I think that it's pretty plain to see that that's been something that's going on for a long time, and we've had a lot of people that didn't want to call it that because it may not be a popular thing for half of the downtown. I see a lot of people that oppose, I wouldn't even say oppose, I see a lot of people that have different opinions than me that I respect a great deal. I've known Melissa for a long time. That's my friend, and I love her. And I want to make sure that this issue is settled, but I also want to make sure that Dunedin doesn't forget that we're all here together and that we all do love each other. We got to remember that. And even though I would like to see the word vacate removed, I also want to make sure that we don't create a hostile environment. One point that I'd like to make is that being a bar owner of multiple bars, I understand that my product is not my food, my product is not my beer, my product is not my liquor, my product is my atmosphere. And the outdoor is part of my atmosphere. So you're limiting the ability for bars to sell their product during that time at the most crucial and the easiest time for them to sell that product. I also understand the impact on people, and I understand that this is a tough situation, and I don't envy you, but I would like to make those points, and I sure appreciate you listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Perez-Keene. I am a resident here in Dunedin. 1030 Bluff Circle is my residence, but I own Pisces.
Have you been sworn in?
No, I have not.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I spoke last time that you guys met, and I said my piece, and I was going to leave it there, but I can't. I own Pisces. The vacate, it needs to be removed. It does affect us as a business, and it's going to affect also employees. And I said that last time. We're putting a lot of weight on our employees with putting a curfew. And if a lot of people don't want to call it a curfew, but it is a curfew. If you want people outside of a premises or outside of anywhere, you put a curfew of 11 o'clock. When somebody goes to dine, and let's say you go on vacation anywhere, and I'll put this on the residents, if you guys go on vacation anywhere, and you sit down at a restaurant, let it be 9 o'clock, and they ask you, you need to be finished with your entire meal by 11 o'clock and leave the premises, will you go there again? You won't go there again. So the same thing is going to happen to us. Once again, I close at 9 and I close at 10 during the weekend. But you know what? There is people that take a little bit of time. Let's say on the weekend, I have a 45-minute wait. And then the last person actually ends up sitting down at 10 o'clock. That means that they only have an hour to eat before I actually have to escort them out of my premises. That does not look good on me. That does not look on Dunedin. Because you're only doing that to us. Okay, you're doing it to every single business. So that means that all the businesses, or actually all of the vacationers, are going to stay on the other side of the bridge in Clearwater. The word's going to go around and say, you know what? It's not even worth it. Because we're not going to have a good time. Dunedin's not going to be the place to go anymore. And the conversation is already happening. Because we're having this conversation because these issues are arising in our town. That used to be a place where people used to come and have fun. It's already happening. And we see it as business owners. Believe me, our business have dropped. People are not coming over here anymore as they used to. So that means that people are hearing these conversations. And it's going to get worse. So guess what? Please Google anywhere or check history where people have put a vacate or a curfew into a town and see what happens to that town. I urge you to do that as residents as well, because believe me, I'm a Dunedin resident and I love how much value my properties have gained just because Dunedin is what is Dunedin. So when you have a ghost town, your property value goes down. And us as business owners, we are trying to keep everything alive. We're trying to keep businesses or vacationers coming into our town. We spend our own money advertising for Dunedin. So all I ask is please remove that from there because it's going to cause more problems than what you get things for our businesses and our employees as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hi, Jason Williams again, 1986 Braymore Drive. You did swear me in earlier. hearing everybody speak today, I kept thinking of these different issues, and one of the things that resounded real loudly with me is I have 3 kids now. One of them's a baby. I've been sitting out there with the entire time. You guys have been hearing her squealing and stuff, but I made sure to stay for this because kids to me is the biggest thing in our city. Right now, and I brought this up in another meeting we had, is the average age of the person in Dunedin is 58 years old who resides here. We have no generations that's coming up, and if you put the restrictions on there or regulations that restrict growth from kids or people in their 20s coming and working here, they can't afford to live here, and now they're going to go somewhere else, they're going to eat somewhere else, they're going to drink somewhere else. It's just not going to happen for us to have an influx of youth anymore. So I ask you, please, yes, vacate this so that we can, or remove the vacate so that we can continue and regrow the youth that it was in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hi, Lisa Sanpietro Wren, 968 Emerson Drive. And no, I was not sworn in because I wasn't planning on talking.
Thank you.
I know,
Please raise your
shocker.
right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is, I do. Hi, everybody, my name is Lisa Sanpietro Wren. I know a few of you guys recognize me as I've lived here since 1988. I have worked in downtown Dunedin since 1999 at a very core of downtown Dunedin. As of March 29th, 2024, I am finally, after 36 years of living in Dunedin, a proud property owner. It took me all this time to buy my house in this state, in this city, with my living husband that's smart sitting outside. I spent 25 plus years working in the hospitality business in downtown Dunedin to help get me to the point financially that I could afford to buy a house in this city, and that also got me to owning my own business in this city. It might be a small one, but I finally got there, all because of working at Kelly's Restaurant, now Crown and Bowl, from 7 a.m. in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, going home, taking a shower, and going right back to working at what used to be Chickaboom Room from 6 p.m. till midnight. I was there when we had to put in the sound ordinance for 11 o'clock to stop the live music outside. I was there when we moved it inside to Blair, after Virgil and Kathy bought it and turned it into Blair. I've been here for every single one of these sound ordinances. If it wasn't for us being able to stay open and have that live, not music, but camaraderie outside, I wouldn't have the finances to stay in this city. I wouldn't have the finances to raise my son, who is now going to USF on that dime and keeping the money in the state. I wouldn't have had the money to buy my house nor start my own business. Owning a house, renting a house in this, anywhere, doesn't have to be in Dunedin. If you have, let's be honest, we've all had parties before at our house when we were renting, kids, whatever. You went to your neighbor and you knocked on the door. You put a note on all the little neighbors next to you and said, hey, guess what? We're gonna have a party tonight. Before you call the cops on us for being too loud, can you just come over and let us know that we're being too loud? We'll bring down the noise. When did neighborly love stop going from we're going to be polite and ask before we just jump on everybody's back? I'm not saying that being loud outside at past 11 or past 3 a.m. is, all I'm stating is why is all the financial burden falling on the business? If I live downtown, which by the way, I used to live on President Street with a 2-year-old, my favorite part of living there was listening to the outside noise because it meant that I was still a part of this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Thank you. George, any clarifications you want to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a reminder to the board, I know there was a question about the zoning categories that this particular proposal would fall to. This is that listing. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 outside of the downtown with the number of parcels that would exceed the parcels that are in the downtown. So this does apply to all of these properties should they choose a bar or restaurant use. This would be subordinate to a bar or restaurant use. I want to make that clarification. Very quickly on the BTR, We typically can't use the BTR as a regulating document, so we need the codified ordinance to be able to pursue an enforcement action if one is needed. I think I know there was a question about what constitutes an outdoor dining area. Those are provided for in those definitions that precede each of those sections. I think I heard a comment about signage on umbrellas. Well, not just that, but the entirety of section 107-32.3E. And what we'll do is before Thursday, we'll look at each of those provisions and provide the purpose behind that particular provision. And those are carried over from the existing regulations, just so you know, they are in the existing ordinance. A question on the number of permits in the downtown. We do have 16 that have an existing permit. Roughly 30 would be subject to that, so it's about 14 is the spread on that. And I would say that from a professional perspective, this is a lot less restrictive than what is currently in place from a commercial standpoint. Finally, I think I heard something on the transferability. We just frankly didn't see a need to require a new or new business owner to come in and receive a rubber stamp on the same permit that the previous owner might have had. Our concern, obviously, from a city perspective, is life safety and health. If the parking's there, if the bathrooms are there, if the means of egress is there, and that was originally approved, we just didn't see a reason to bring somebody back in to have that same plan reapproved. Again, if that plan changes or if it's expanded, then that property owner would be responsible for coming in and grabbing that new permit. So I think that gets it, unless I missed anything.
There was an additional, if I may, Mr. Chair, the outdoor dining, the furniture, if they have the torches or whatever, that's in case there's a hurricane, when we go under hurricane warning. So we wouldn't require the removal, much the same way that right now living room has all their furniture, they secure it, it's still out and in place. And in fact, the multifamily adjacent would have to remove theirs as well. So construction sites have to unload their roofs and so on and so forth. So it's a function of a storm approaching.
Should you clarify that?
It's in there.
Okay, but I mean, evidently they didn't understand. Mr. Cotherman said, do I have to run out every night? And that is under emergency situation.
It's in the ordinance and it's clear, yes.
Yeah, so we re-clarified.
We've re-clarified, yes.
Thank you. Members, comments, thoughts?
I've got some comments. You want to go? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I thought the lady was very interesting about, should this just be the downtown? And then I wanted to ask Jennifer, though, I think that, do you have complaints on Alt 19 and at the beach? I mean, are there noise complaints? It's not just downtown.
Well, I think that the fact that the ordinance is citywide, and the reason for that is that there are outdoor dining areas that are non-conforming right now outside the downtown. And so
there are other areas that receive complaints and that
right.
Police.
Yes.
I don't know if Hunter went home, but, Hunter, I wish I could stay up till 4 a.m. No, those days are gone for me, but I did hear that. And, I think the bottom line, and Melissa, I feel bad. I mean, I don't know how you, I mean, I'm going to vote to vacate that, but I do feel her pain. I mean, she's right across the street. Right across the street. Is that where you put up the 8-foot fence? And the people, do they have an 8-foot fence? Well, do they put up an 8-foot fence? Would that bring the sound, buffer it back?
No discussion here, please.
I'm just asking. I'm just saying, that's a hard one, but when you're really abutting residential, you're going to have to look at that, and I don't know the answers.
I would just say to the commission, each of these are going to be unique as they come in. It's going to be about them identifying those areas, and then hitting those, but there are so many factors that go into how these are permitted. It's very difficult to explain. So it's a product of the size of the lot. It's a product of the function of the lot, where the outdoor dining area will be located, and then what rules then would apply. So in that instance where I think a home is across the street, you're not going to have an 8-foot fence in the front yard facing the right-of-way. So, but there would be potentially there's a sound attenuation plan that's required as part of that.
And can sound attenuation, how much more can we do with that? I mean, I think that's really important, the baffling, the direction of sound. We've talked about it up here. I mean, I think we're missing something in.
I would just say those are things that aren't in the current ordinance that are coming in with the new ordinance. So the requirement for a sound attenuation plan isn't in the current ordinance. It is.
But it is. You are going to address it and be more aware of sound attenuation.
That's correct. Yep.
So, you know, Bill, I mean, goodness knows, A and C, we've gone round and round. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if things have changed. I don't know. I don't know A and C. C is the boom box. So, you know, but I hear you, Bill. I mean, I've been hearing you on that one. Kim, she probably left, but thank God that someone was happy tonight because they put wood in the ordinance. So, you know, I'm always happy when I see someone happy. And, you know, I've thought about this, and, you know, my husband said, don't wax poetic, but I can't help myself. So, you know, I sort of feel like we have two golden geese, because you're all golden geese. You know, you've got the music industry and the restaurant industry and the lodging. You're a golden goose. But your residents, they're golden geese too. They're all part of the quantum spirit of Dunedin, two golden geese. And somehow those geese have to get together and have goslings. I mean, you've got to get it together and work it because you're both so important. You can't X one. You can't throw out one. You're both so important to what makes us special. And I think Mr. Seibert talked to that. You know, I think Joe Kokolakis said, just let's work together. And that's the bottom line. Not someone wins, someone loses, but let's work together. We're a community. Don't kill the golden geese because you're both golden geese. So,
And they need each other.
And you need each other.
Thank you.
I can't wax quite as poetic as Deborah, but first I do want to thank everyone for all their comments tonight. It was very helpful to see, you know, how people feel, and it reinforces a lot of the reasons I moved to this community, which is pretty nice. I also want to really express thank you to Jennifer and to George. As Kimberly said, this has been a 2-year process on the task force and the BRC to get to this point, and done a great job, I think, taking the feedback, the differing perspectives, and trying to weave that into a code that's viable going forward. Tina mentioned, you know, we're all the beneficiaries of those who came before us who helped make this community what it is today. A rising tide does lift all boats, and that happened by us all working together. The strength of this community is a reflection of how well we appreciate each other, we respect each other, and we value the community, and that we value each other. A lot of problems are preventable if we respect and value each other. But we do need rules as well, and I think this code, as proposed, has addressed a lot of challenging issues. The new code does ensure business are going to meet parking and bathroom requirements, which in many ways is going to be self-regulating, self-limiting, okay? It allows business more flexibility around fencing and other means to try to attenuate noise to protect their neighbors. Those weren't there before. There were limitations. The DRP burden is loosened so the city can help businesses move more quickly, but large venues still need to go through the design review process, so that's protection there. The BRC committee also shared best practices to help make entertainers accountable for noise citations. The city also heard us, talked about providing more enforcement on nights and weekends. So it's in our best interest to realize that our right to freedom and enjoyment generally stops at the point that it impacts others' freedom and enjoyment. And so we need to respect each other. We are part of a community. We live and work next to each other. If we do respect each other, that'll prevent a lot of the problems. When we don't, conflict arises. And I think we've heard some of that tonight. So I think moving forward with this code will help ensure our businesses are healthy. It'll give them the ability to go forward. I think the noise ordinance and other codes are able to protect us if we use them properly. And so at this point, I think this was work well done. And I would like to make a motion that we move forward with 2324 as proposed, with the addition of the two ideas, George, that you had up there about adding wood to the fencing and changing the sound attenuation wording accordingly.
Perfect. I'll second.
Other comments?
Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and voicing your opinions and sharing your stories of Dunedin and what brought you here and why you're still here and why it's so important to you. Deborah, I want to see the Goslings, okay? You know, this is going to take a lot of work, and we need to work together, and that's what we do, is we work together. It's important that we respect each other as we go through this process, and we will, because we are Dunedin.
Dennis?
In 1971, thank you. In 1971, I was coming up from Miami. We went through downtown St. Petersburg, my brother and I. We said, wow, this is really dead. It was about 6 o'clock at night, and it was in June. There was nothing. Let's keep on going. And we stumbled across Dunedin. We don't want 1971 in downtown Dunedin. We truly don't. Because it made St. Petersburg look lively. I've been here living as a resident since we moved from Safety Harbor in '93, since 1993. So I've seen downtown grow. I've seen a lot of changes in downtown. I do have a question, and one of the main things we were talking about, or people were talking about, was the 11 o'clock vacate issue. Do we know how many people in the hospitality industry work in downtown Dunedin? And do we know any amount of impact, economic impact, that vacating at 11 o'clock would have? And if we don't, should we, before we make a decision?
Thank you. We have a motion. It has been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it. And I thank everyone for coming. We all being good citizens.